Welcome, everyone. I call to order the Beaverton School Board meeting for February 28th, 2022. I want to begin with a land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that our district rests on the traditional land of the Tualatin Kalapuya. We thank the ancestors of the Kalapuya for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands. We are honored by the collective work of many Indigenous nations, leaders, and families who demonstrate resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We'll start with a roll call of board members. When I call your name, just let me know you're here. Zone 1, Susan Greenberg.
Here.
Zone 2, Karen Perez.
Aquí.
Zone 3, Eric Simpson.
Here.
Zone 4, Sunita Garg.
Here.
Zone 5, Ugona Inanaya.
I'm here.
Zone 6, Becky Timchuk.
Here.
And Zone 7, Tom Collette. I am here. Does anyone have any changes they would like to make to the agenda tonight? Okay. Hearing none, we will start with our community recognitions. The first one is We Expect Excellence. 2022 Regeneron STS Scholars, Maggie Bao, Jayun Choi, Pratik Vangal. Sunset High School seniors Maggie Bao, Pratik Vangal, and Westview High School senior Jayun Choi were named 3 of the top 300 scholars in the Regeneron Science Talent Search 2022, the nation's oldest and most prestigious science and math competition for high school seniors. Maggie, Pratik, and Jayun and their schools were awarded $2,000 each. The Regeneron Science Talent Search Scholars were selected from 1,805 applications received from 603 high schools across 46 states, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and 8 other countries. Scholars were chosen based on their exceptional research skills, commitment to academics, innovative thinking, and promise as scientists. Congratulations, Maggie, Jayun, Pratik, and I want to invite each of you to tell us a little bit about your projects. So if you want to turn your screens on, we're interested in the work you guys did. Pratik?
Absolutely. I'd love to start us off. Hey, everyone. My name is Pratik Vangal. I'm a senior at Sunset High School in Portland, Oregon. And my research involves epilepsy, which is one of the most common neurological disorders out there. So to give a little bit of background on that, epilepsy as a neurological disorder is most commonly characterized by its primary symptom of seizures. Now, seizures most commonly are denoted by epileptic patients going unconscious and then having a rapid shaking of their extremities. And the most important thing to note about seizures is that they happen unpredictably. Patients don't generally know when their seizures are going to occur. And because of that, it has a lot of implications on their everyday lives. And so in order to help epilepsy patients, I've been working for the past several years to develop algorithms capable of accurately predicting seizures before they occur. And so as part of that, my algorithms use the brain's electrical activity, they use fluctuations in heart rate, as well as trends in the cortisol values in order to create a singular model that can predict seizures up to 22 minutes before they occur with over 90% accuracy. And as part of that, I've been also working to develop a medical device that patient can wear. And so in the future, what I'm hoping to work towards is to create a holistic solution that's effectively as simple as an epileptic patient wearing a hat and then being able to live their everyday lives just as anyone else would.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maggie, do you want to say something?
Yeah, should I go next or?
Please.
Okay, so my project was on multi-valued quantum machine learning. And just to give some background, a common approach to machine learning is by grouping information on a data set in the form of functions. And oftentimes there will be multiple functions that can fit the same information of the data set. And the Kronecker-Reed-Muller forms are just different ways to represent the same data. And I created a quantum machine learning algorithm optimizing the ternary input, binary output Kronecker-Reed-Muller forms So what I did is I extended the Kronecker-Riedmüller form, something that was done in binary, to ternary input, binary output logic, and then programmed a variation of this algorithm in Qiskit, which is a programming language developed by IBM. And how can my research be used? So my algorithm can be used to find the minimum ternary input, binary output function, selecting the optimal ternary input, binary output Kronecker-Riedmüller forms, using a modified famous quantum search algorithm called Grover search. And as for why this is important or different than current research, I have 2 points. So why quantum and not classical? So while standard computing bits can be in one of 2 states, quantum works with quantum objects that can be in a superposition of many different states at the same time. And this makes calculations and analyzing data faster and more efficient. However, quantum technology is still very much underground. And one of the main obstacles to quantum today is quantum decoherence, which means that an object cannot maintain its quantum properties for enough time to produce reliable and repeatable results. And I'm looking for ways to decrease the complexity of the circuit and algorithm, because more calculations mean more quantum noise and more decoherence, which means less efficiency for the computer. And why multi-valued quantum? Of course, classical multi-valued computers were not very practical, but with the concept of quantum superposition, I believe multi-valued logic will be practical, because there could be essentially be infinite equal quantum states within a single fundamental unit of information. And so multi-valued is useful because we could store much more information on much less qubits or qubits. So my project becomes the gateway to multi-valued quantum machine learning. And relative to other research projects that I've seen, it's a long way before my algorithm could become practical, but I'm really excited to see where this field could take us. And it's kind of like uncharted territory. And I want to give some credit to my high school computer science teacher, Mr. Galbraith at Sunset, for really inspiring me to pursue computer science deeper, especially in an area where there's not a lot of women.
That's great, Maggie. Look forward to one day using a quantum computer that your research has made possible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jaeun, are you here with us?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Am I good to go ahead or?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my name is Jan Choi, and I'm a senior at Westview High School. And my research involved looking at the relationship between achievement motivation and screen time. So when I first got possession of my own phone going into high school, what I realized was that a lot of the time I spent on my phone was something I like to call dead time. So time that is unproductive, yet still unenjoyable and has no other purpose other than being a distraction. So to me, it felt like just having a phone made me less motivated. So I became more concerned when I saw a large amount of time some of my friends were spending on their phones. However, I soon found that this amount wasn't just in my friends. The national average non-productive screen time of teens is over 7.5 hours daily, which is actually larger than the average amount of sleep teens get each night. So with these numbers on the rise, I began to wonder how these devices could affect our motivation on a larger scale in terms of our personal success, personal aspirations. So I developed a survey that allowed me to measure achievement motivation and compare it to different categories of screen time using existing measures found in the literature. Results from this survey confirmed my suspicions and showed that non-productive screen time, as well as other categories, including smartphone and social media usage, correlated with lower achievement motivation. So with my research, I hope that I am able to give others a good reason as to why screen time should be limited. With a potential impact on motivation, screen time could also have lasting effects on our personal success. Of course, it would be impossible to completely eliminate our screen time in this day of age, but if everyone could reduce that dead time they spend on their devices each day, I believe that each of us could accomplish more and live more fulfilling lives. Thank you.
Excellent research and very apropos of many of the things we talk about as a board.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. A big round of applause for everybody who's winners tonight. Great job, guys. And
All
then we'll
right.
hand it over to Becky.
I am questioning what I'm doing with my life's work, just listening to these high school students. So impressive. So next up, we have We Collaborate. Every day, nearly 218 BSD school drivers safely and efficiently transport approximately 28,000 students to and from school. Over the past year, transportation departments across the nation have faced unprecedented challenges due to driver shortages. Excuse me, just a second. Oh, Tom, I'm going to need you to, my screen went dead here. I am so sorry.
You're muted, Tom.
Muted, Tom. I'm sorry.
No worries, I got you.
Okay.
Over the past year, transportation departments across the nation have faced unprecedented challenges due to driver shortages. And just in the past month, those shortages have been exacerbated by COVID-related absences. Our transportation department has needed to pivot on an almost daily basis. Everyone who is licensed to drive a school bus is driving routes, including our dispatchers, trainers, and mechanics, in addition to their regular workloads. Even our transportation administrator, Craig Beaver, who's joining us tonight, is behind the wheel of a bus nearly every morning and afternoon. Please join me in applauding and saying thank you to Craig and our transportation department. And we have with us tonight, Craig Beaver, Fontai Artis Strutz, who's a bus driver, Tammy Pacheco, who's a router, Kelly Lewis, who's a dispatcher, and Derek Olar, who's a bus driver. And a big round of applause to all you guys. Thank you for what you're doing. This has been an incredible year and what you have done to get us through this. And I would just also add, looking back to the previous year, the work you did to deliver meals to our students in the middle of the pandemic was nothing short of heroic. So thank you for that work. And I don't know if any folks want to say a little something tonight. We're happy to turn the mic over to you.
Well, on behalf of my fellow employees are welcome to say something, but on behalf of the entire department, we want to thank the school board for its continued support in everything that we do. We appreciate it very much. Very dedicated group of people, and we just put our heads down and find a way to get it done and get our kids to school. So thank you to the board for your continued support. We very much appreciate it.
Next up, we're going to hear comments from the Beaverton Education Association President, Sarah Schmidt, and then Kirsty Sackman, the President of the Oregon School Employees Association. Sarah, are you? Oh, yep, I see you.
Hello, good evening, Chair Collette, Superintendent Grotting, and members of the board. I'd like to start this evening by expressing our gratitude to the district's counselors, social workers, nurses, and all of the other staff members who have been responding to crises and helping us process trauma throughout the pandemic and into this current school year, while also working to change the culture of our schools to be more restorative and grounded in social and emotional learning. Your work is deeply appreciated. The board considers many decisions about resources in your many meetings. And I know you will continue to hear about resources during future budget committee meetings and throughout the work of the BSD bond campaign. I want to make sure that you are also keeping the most important resource that you have in mind, which is the educators who work with Beaverton School District students every day. Educators build relationships with students. We've cultivated the brilliance of our students, as we heard just now from the Sunset High School and Westview High School students. Educators have gone above and beyond for our students during this pandemic, have collaborated with teams to support mental and behavioral health. We've modernized our grading and assessment practices. We've teamed up with classified colleagues to meet the needs of our students. And we work to keep parents informed about the academic progress of the students that we work with. We have shown up for our students in challenging times, and we are asking for you to continue to show up for us as well. Our bargaining teams have been at the table now for almost a year. For many understandable reasons, this process is taking longer than we had all hoped, but BEA members are extremely disappointed that we have been waiting for over 130 days for a response to one of our most important proposals, which includes the language that addresses the planning and preparation time that we have to do our jobs well, and class sizes and caseloads that are small enough so that we can provide the individual attention that each of our students deserves. We know that our community values the important and incredible work of educators in Beaverton and expects that educators receive the support needed to meet the needs of each and every student. Our bargaining teams are meeting again this Thursday, and we are hoping that the district will bring us a response and that we see progress in other areas that show that you value your staff and want this profession to be sustainable and joyful. Thank you as always to board members for the important work that each of you does on behalf of students and staff in Beaverton, and for working hard to make sure that our schools are safe and effective learning environments for everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, President Schmidt. Next, we'll hear from Kirsty Sackman from OSEA.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, I am Kirsty Sackman. I am the Beaverton OSEA president. I always love to start with a big thank you for everyone for their commitment and time, for working tirelessly for our district, our community, and for our students. I want to say thank you to anyone that's still here from transportation. You guys are the true heroes. You've had to really work hard this year to get our students back to school. And without you, we wouldn't have our students back in buildings safely and ready to go. You're the first faces they see when they start their day and the last faces they see when they end their day. And that commitment and the energy you spend and you give them means the world. I know I love my interactions with our transportation team, and I know it's such a value to our students as well. As an OSEA board, we have been working overtime, supporting day-to-day operations and the needs of our chapter, following the ever-changing COVID surges and regulation changes, and then the impacts of our daily life in schools and, educating through a pandemic. In February, we as a board worked with a committee of district staff to complete our classified position reviews and spent a lot of time preparing to begin our bargaining of our classified contract. We thank everyone through the district and within HR that participated in our position reviews. And we really feel happy with the outcome of how that went and how our communication happened. As we prepare to start bargaining, we have established a team of different classifications to represent our classified community to the best of our ability. Some people feel that we're a little para heavy on our bargaining team, but that's also because the majority of our OSEA board are fellow paras like myself. I think all but one of us are a para because I'm really good at getting other paras to join with me and speak out and use our voice. We have had trainings and meetings and sat a lot of time combing through our data to find out what is most crucial to our membership to bring to our bargaining table. We've also continued conversations with BEA to make sure that we are standing in solidarity and unity with them. This Friday, March 4th, we will have our first in-person bargaining session as a classified union, and we are very much looking forward to the time at the table. We as a union will be sending out a newsletter this week with dates and times of our scheduled bargaining sessions, and we invite our members and classified staff to join us by showing up and sitting in on sessions with us. We as an OSEA organization would like to say thank you to everyone who has worked so hard to support our classified staff, as well as all of our classified staff who continue to show up and put in the crucial efforts needed to support our students in this ever-changing year. I think our biggest thing that we would really like to say is that we stand with our BEA colleagues as they continue to bargain with the district. And we want to make it very clear that we stand in solidarity with our certified staff every day in all that they do and all that they are and all the support that they provide us and that we can provide them. We are asking our classified staff to show up this Thursday at 3:45 at the BEA office to show our unity and our solidarity as BA continues to bargain. The BA office is off of Evergreen, and the BA needs us to show up in support as the hardworking community and team that we are. We as Beaverton are always stronger when we stand together. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, board, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Kirsty. Have a great night too. Next up, we have representatives from our Student Advisory Committee. See Beatrice and Jonah and Grace, and there's Neil. Great. We're looking forward to receiving a report from you guys.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you so much for having us on, and I'll just go ahead and start. As a quick introduction, my name is Neil Jane, and I'm a senior at Westview High School, and this is my second year in the Beaverton Student Advisory Committee as the co-president, and really enjoyed the opportunity to come to these school board meetings and just update on what we're working on in the Beaverton Student Advisory Committee. So this year, I'm a part of the School Resource Officer Subcommittee, which is a continuum of last year. And this year, we're really focused on working with Sea Change, and as well as continuing our student dialogue session that we held last year. So last year, we held that student dialogue session, which was a great way to get conversation going regarding students' questions about SROs and what SROs had to say. But this year, we want to continue working with students specifically to hopefully host another student session later this year and really hear what the students are saying, and another roundtable discussion that really is centered mostly on the students that we were maybe missing in last year's dialogue. But in addition, some of our core work has really been working with Sea Change as well. So we actually had a Zoom meeting with Sea Change just a few weeks ago, discussing what their work is like with the SRO program, and they've really been using our committee as like a direct focus for like getting student input, and we've like been looking at some of their surveys and trying to give our student voice and get the word out about the survey, and just continuing to work with them as they review the SRO program. But yeah, that's like the main summary of my work with the SROs, and Beatrice and Jonah can expand on any of that. But I've also been working on the mental health side as well, and Grace can expand on what she's been doing in the mental health committee. But recently I joined the BSD Behavioral Health and Wellness Project team as a student representative, and I just had the first meeting for that last month, and we are currently just looking at some of the goals and what the definitions behind behavioral health and wellness, and just plans for the upcoming year, and been excited for that as well. But yeah, thank you again for having me on.
And to echo what Neil said, good evening, Chair Collette and School Board and Superintendent Grotting. I'm really honored to be here and to be one of the co-presidents of the Beaverton Student Advisory Committee. And I'd say one of the big changes that I'd like to update you on is Sea Change's new survey, which was sent out to all BSD high schoolers last week. And that was a pretty big step because Sea Change is prioritizing student voice, and we appreciate their collaboration with us. So I'd like to encourage all the students out there to fill out that survey. Prioritizing student voice is necessary. It's a school district and serving students. So we'd all appreciate it if all the students were able to fill out the SRO survey in their Canvas. And again, the SRO subcommittee within BSAC is continuing to work on organizing a student-centered discussion. And again, I'd like to encourage any students watching to reach out to us, because again, we're trying to garner as much student voice as possible. So again, we're really honored to be here, and spring sports just started this week. So lots of new opportunities. So thank you.
Hey, Beatrice, how will people be able to get a hold of you? Students want to get a hold of you all. Like, is it the Do you have a group email or some way to contact you all if a student wants to get a hold of you?
How they can contact us is through the Humans of BSD Instagram account. So hopefully a little bit later I can put the Instagram account into the chat so that people can look and see. But yeah.
I myself don't have a lot to add to that, other than that Beatrice and Neil really hit the nail on the head with what we're doing here on the BSAC. We're continuing to work with SROs and especially students this year. We had some great work with SROs last year, having that roundtable discussion with both students and officers in our schools. But this year, our goal is to really, really focus on students. The goal is to make this year about student voice. And we really appreciate the efforts of Sea Change and the school board to center student voice when it comes to issues that we're all pretty passionate about. Things like officers in our schools, things like student mental health, and things like inclusion of all students. And with that, I'll pass it off to Grace.
So hello, District Board and Superintendent Grotting. It's a privilege to talk to you all tonight. So I am the person who runs the Humans of BSD Instagram account. And so over the past few weeks, our social media presence has increased a lot, and we've been getting more followers and more engagement. And last week we held an Instagram live stream with the tri-presidents who are all a part of the SRO committee to talk about the new changes in SRO policy, to talk about how students in BSD can raise their voice and to communicate their needs about SRO policy. And so future plans include for that Instagram account, talking with the mental health committee, which I'm in, and to possibly do a live stream with Dr. Vrenko and other administrative members who facilitate the BSAC to just talk about what the district is doing, because it seems like a lot of BSD high schoolers don't understand what the district is doing in their schools, and it affects their daily lives. And so the Instagram account is a really great way to communicate what's going on here to people who may not have the time or may not know that these district board meetings are taking place. And every once in a while, I like to post on the Instagram stories about other updates like the SRO survey, early release days, and other things like mask mandates and stuff like that. And as well as the mental health committee, my partner and I are currently working on a survey, which will hopefully go to most, if not all, comprehensive and option high schools. So in our first meeting in November, we talked about mental health in high schools, and the conclusion that we really went to was that the BSD has the ability to provide mental health resources to people in high school, but the high schoolers don't know where to find them. And so what this survey is going to do is to ask high schoolers, so where do you an example question is, do you know where your wellness room is? And after crowd surfing in the BSAC, we found that most students, particularly in Southridge High School, don't know where the wellness room is. And that's a very concerning thing, because that wellness room is for them. That's where they go and find their school psychologist, their therapist, and they talk and they open up. And so we also talked about other things like mental health advisory lessons, and how that can be somewhat of that teachers use to kind of, they don't really go in depth about it, because it seems like something that you put to the side and not really talk about. And so that's what the survey is going to do. And then later on, we hope to, in May or June, host a roundtable discussion with BSD high school principals and counselors, BSAC members, select BSD high school students, as well as the district board, you guys, for us to all have a roundtable discussion with our findings and to talk about what kind of things we can do to improve providing more resources to BSD high school students. So that's pretty much it on the mental health side. Yeah.
Thank you for those reports. That's excellent, excellent work. Board members, any questions for the BSAC?
I just have a quick question for Grace. Thank you so much, Grace, for that report and all the good work that you and your team are doing. My quick question is, do you have a Facebook account as well as an Instagram account?
Yeah, so we have an Instagram account. In fact, in the beginning of the year, we were kind of debating as a team, should we open a Facebook account? So I would like to know, is that something that you as the district board believes that's a good thing to have? Because I kind of just thought maybe it's not that much of a thing that we should focus on, since the Instagram account is for students, and most students are on Instagram rather than Facebook. So if we wanted to reach parents and older populations, maybe we could open a Facebook account. So yeah, just wanted to know.
Karen, I saw you had your hand up.
No, I'm just super proud of the group and their work, and how they're leaning into important issues for our students and finding ways to have student voice be a part of what we do in Beaverton. And so I really want to just thank the group for their work and, how they're leaning into all this. So thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Right. Well, thank you all for the work. Karen couldn't have said it better, and I agree. So thank you so much. Next, we're going to do the public comments portion of our board meeting. So I want to start the note that we received 20 written public comments. Board members appreciate your comments and thank each and every one of you for taking the time to share your thoughts with us. For those who are attending tonight and are here to testify, thank you so much for joining us. We are truly grateful for your presence and the opportunity to receive your input. One of our district's greatest strengths is community involvement. As we know, your involvement comes from a place of caring for our students, families, community, and staff. Please know that board members do not respond directly to testimony, but we are paying close attention to your comments. We know it can be difficult to testify in public, but we are sincerely interested in hearing your comments and concerns. We ask that all present model respectful behavior to provide an open space in which a variety of viewpoints and perspectives can be shared. A few guidelines. Our comments do not allow for the specific naming of school personnel. Personnel matters should be dealt with either through the complaint process or by contacting a principal or central office staff member. If a school personnel is named during a comment period, I will stop your comments and ask you to refrain from naming the person. If it occurs a second time, you will be asked to end your comments. Comments must be relevant to our current board agenda. If you're speaking on a different subject, you will receive a warning. If a commenter continues to deviate from the board's topics, they will be muted and their testimony ended. If you have not spoken directly to a subject on the board agenda tonight, within 30 seconds of beginning your testimony, I will stop and ask that you speak to an issue on the agenda or end your testimony. Everyone has 2 minutes to provide testimony to the board. A timer will be set and will go off at the 2-minute mark. If you continue talking beyond the 2 minutes, I will ask you to end your comments. To ensure fair treatment for all commentators, this will be enforced uniformly regardless of the subject matter, point of view, or whether you have finished your prepared comments. I understand it can be difficult to provide comments within this shortened time period and recommend that any comments you did not have time to provide orally be sent to the board in an email or paper form. Please do not speak or interrupt the meeting outside of the 2-minute period provided for your testimony. If this occurs, you'll be asked to leave or removed from the meeting. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We look forward to hearing your comments. And I'm going to get my timer prepared here. 1 second. Our first person is Ben Vidic, who's a parent, and will be speaking to the financial report. Ben, are you here?
I am. Thank you very much. I just want to thank you, school board, and Dr. Grotting for allowing me to participate in this tonight. My name is Ben Vidic. I reside in Zone 5, which is school board member and United Zone. I have 2 children that attend Hope. And I cannot say enough about this school. It is fantastic. I realize I can't say anything, name names, but the principal and the director of operations, they're amazing individuals. And I just, every time I drop my kids off, I feel very safe. They provide a great leadership and an environment. On the meeting agenda tonight are the minutes from the February 15th meeting. And I apologize because it was either the financial report or the minutes. I wasn't quite sure how to link this to, but it's regarding the $723 million bond that will be on the May ballot. And in looking at the discussion that occurred at the meeting and then looking at the information online, it kind of lays out how the money is going to be spent at elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, option schools. It doesn't address charter schools. And I was a little bit concerned about that because this is a substantial amount of money, but it doesn't appear to be distributed equally among the schools. And so being a lawyer, I kind of went into the law and I found ORS 338-115 section 9. And the law forbids charter schools from issuing bonds, but it doesn't appear to prohibit schools from issuing bonds that can fund charter schools, if that makes sense. So it doesn't appear in my brief review that there's a legal reason why it's not happening. And maybe it's just an oversight. So with that, I would just encourage a school board to consider using some of the bond funds to go to our great charter schools, both Hope Chinese Charter School and Arco Iris. These are two great organizations. They're rated #1 in the state for Hope, and then #2 Arco Iris. And I just think that if you've got $723 million to go around, some of it should try and go to these great institutional programs. The last thing I wanted to say is,
Ben, I'm sorry, your time is up. But thank you for your comments. It's
Thank you.
appreciated. All right, next we have Christy Goncharowski, who's a parent and wants to speak to the district COVID update. Christy, are you here?
Yes, I am, but it won't let me use my camera. I don't know if that's, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can't see you. There shouldn't be a restriction on you turning your camera on.
Yeah. The co-host let me turn it on. Okay, great, cool.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Let me know when you're ready. And
okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Christy Goncharowski, and I'm a mom of 3, a sister, a friend, an aunt, and a wife. My family and I moved to Oregon 5 years ago because it was a forward-thinking, open-minded, and very conscious city. So thank you, school board members, for the opportunity to share my thoughts and perspectives in regards to lifting COVID restrictions, including RSSL rules and making masks optional. The email I received on 2/24 inspired me to sign up to speak to you all today. Quote, the BSD continues to engage with our stakeholders. Myself, and I know thousands of other parents believe that we are those stakeholders. So please, we'd also like to have you guys define who else you consider stakeholders in this decision to lift the mask mandates. Even Dr. Leanna Wen, the CNN medical analyst, agrees. I have a quick 15-second clip I just want to play for everybody. Oops, hold on, technical issues. Sorry.
Shift from a government mandate imposed from the state or the local district of a school. Rather, it should shift to an individual responsibility by the family, who can still decide that their child can wear a mask if needed.
Take New Jersey, the case in New Jersey.
That clip, she's basically saying that at this point in the pandemic, she feels as a medical analyst that the government and even the school board districts should give this right back to the parents. It's time for parents' rights to choose what is best for their family when it comes to masking. We are not a one-size-fits-all society. The science has definitely evolved. I'll end with this. Smiling is powerful.
Christy, 2 minutes are up, but thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Next, we have Zia Goncharowski.
You know what? That's my daughter. She is actually at basketball tonight. So instead, my son wrote something. If I could just read it for him. Okay?
Yeah, we usually don't substitute one commentator for another. That's one of our rules.
It's quick. It's about maybe 1 minute long. That's all.
Okay. If it's a student voice, we had 11 folks, we would have let another person in. I'll allow it.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Bo Goncharowski, and I'm 10 years old, and I'm in 4th grade now. I used to be a lumberjack at Cedar Mill Elementary. When COVID happened, I tried doing Flex online with my mom. It was okay, but not the same as being in person with my favorite teacher, Mr. Williams. I am dyslexic, so I read lips still, and I need to see facial expressions. I do not like wearing a mask, and it gets in the way of my focus and my learning. I did not return to Cedar Mills this school year because of these mask mandates. I am being privately tutored by 2 ladies now who I can see their face, I can understand their expression, and I can learn. But I would love to be back in school to see my friends and teachers' faces. So please let the kids take their masks off and end the mandates. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Okay, next we have Andre Cote. Andre, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Let me know when you're ready to start your comments.
Now it's good.
Great.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. At least I hope it's good evening for you. According to the superintendent report, and I quote, we have been and always will be a district that values inclusion and the voice of every student. Unfortunately, the recent actions do not agree with this promise. Last Thursday, we received a message from Parent Square. It was a message of support for families and staff having connections to Russia and Eastern Europe due to tensions. My son, who is a student, my wife, myself, we were appalled, we were speechless. Let's make this very clear. It's not a political question. The United Nations, as well as the US government, calls it an invasion. It's an invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and it's a war of aggression. It's way beyond tensions. Apart from this blunder, the support is offered to families with connection to Russia and Eastern Europe. Ukraine is not mentioned. That's like watching France being invaded by Nazi, It's like watching France being invaded by Nazi Germany in 1940 and offering support to German families and families of those in Western Europe. I sincerely hope that behind such tone-deaf statement is ignorance and not malice. At the very least, the district should apologize to its students, to students of Ukrainian descent, as well as those having family ties to Ukraine and their families. It goes without saying that the message of support and support itself should be offered to them as well. Yesterday, I believe the message of the Parent Square was updated, but the only change was changing changing Eastern Europe to Ukraine. That's a step in the right direction, but that's far from enough. It still talks of tension rather than what it is, a war. And since it's only an update, there was no email with the new text. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Andre. We appreciate your comments. Next up, we have Christine Muskevich. Christine, are you there?
Hello, I'm here. I'm just turning on my video and can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me know when you're ready to start.
I'm ready to start now.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Christine. I have 2 children in the Beaverton schools, and I would like to comment on the superintendent's email regarding tensions in Eastern Europe. That was a quote. As you probably know, last week, Russia started military aggression against Ukraine. And on Thursday, the BSD sent an email to all parents in which it offered support to families who have connections to Russia and Eastern Europe. Instead of feeling supported, the entire Ukrainian community living in Beaverton is offended by it. Initially, the statement didn't even mention Ukraine or Ukrainians as victims of this aggression. This has been corrected today on Parent Square. However, a corrected copy of the email was never sent to the parents. Second, I can't believe the invasion of Ukraine was described as tensions in Eastern Europe. The current war is not an ethnic conflict. It is a one-sided war of aggression launched without provocation by Russian president against an independent country. Third, I wonder why the invasion of Ukraine was described as tensions in Eastern Europe. Third, I wonder why the district is offering support to families having connections in Russia. None of the military activities are happening there, so there's no threat to Russians. My children's grandmother has been sleeping in a basement in Ukraine for the last 4 nights in fear of Russian bombs, and at the same time, my children's school is offering support to families of those same Russians bombing Ukraine right now. How can they feel safe and welcome in a school that supports evil? Do you also sympathize with family members of Al-Qaeda or members of invaders? I thought BSD teaches everyone to stand up to bullies. My daughter came home today from school and shared that her 8-year-old classmate said, "I want Russia to win." Until BSD starts correctly describing the attack on Ukraine, such comments would continue. I urge you to make your position very clear, accurately describe this unprovoked invasion on Ukraine, and stress that you will not tolerate any negative comments against Ukrainian community. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Okay. Next up, we have Sarah Smith. Sarah, are you there?
Unmute. Okay. There we go. All right. I think we're working, right?
Yep. Let me know when you're ready.
All right. Good enough. All right. Questions I have that the district has not answered. No one I know was chosen in the superintendent search committee. How many applied? What percentage was chosen? Why is a community questionnaire not going out regarding what was considered important characteristics, directions, and expectations for a superintendent? Having been in a hiring position before, I know we always engage the community with listening sessions and online surveys to garner priorities. The community questionnaire regarding continuing masking came out during this meeting, so I changed my comments. It should include vaccine requirements too. We have been slow to remove mandates in respect to other states. Bring back parent and student choice for our own welfare and stop the mandates. I never saw a district annual budget survey that is already closed, or the masking survey, like I said, just came out. That should be clear to any parent in the district. You surveyed the community to find out what you needed to ask for to get a yes vote on the bond. What you are willing, I want to know what you're willing to cut, show fiscal responsibilities, show how much federal money, ESSER, you are receiving and what the cost of that is, and how you are using the overabundance you received from the past forecasted amount from the last bond. Something else I have requested and not received. Start being accountable, responsible, and honest with your community, and then we can consider a bond. As for now, I do not see this happening and would like our voters to say no to this bond. Wait until we have a community input and your new superintendent to make this kind of decision. Stop forcing financial, social, and your personal opinions through without community support. Stop the bond, require an open superintendent search, and stop equity trainings that are costing us good teachers, parents to pull their, not your students out, and fights as tension builds in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Sarah. Next up, we have Nancy Noriega. Nancy, are you there?
Yes, but I cannot, they don't allow me to start the video.
We can see you.
Okay, I'm already there? Okay,
Yeah, we can see you on our end.
okay. Can I start?
Yeah, absolutely.
My name is Nancy and I'm a parent. I'm surprised to see the 700 million bond being promoted where us taxpayers have to pay for it. Based on your promotion of this bond, it does look you took a lot of time and money to make the illusion that BSD needs money, but the student districts already have millions in ESSR funds. School districts are actually swimming in money right now due to the millions in ESSR funds, and they could have and still should reallocate funds from the general fund to do that, to do what they propose to do with retrofitting and building buildings. Please don't ask us taxpayers to pay for something that is already in your budget. It's a matter of being transparent with your dealings and how you actually are spending the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Nancy. Next up, we have Angela Buma. Angela, are you there? Give it one more. Angela, if you're here to comment, now's the time to turn on your screen or your audio. Okay, I'm gonna assume that Angela wasn't able to join us tonight. So we have our last commenter, Jeff Myers. Jeff, are you there?
I'm here. Video's on.
Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready to go. Thank you. So hi, my name is Jeff Myers. I'm a parent of 2 students in BSD and a member of Save Oregon Schools. And thank you for these whole 2 minutes to speak. I will be voting no on the bond, and I am actively campaigning against it. And I'd like to use my time today to explain the why behind those two critical decisions I chose to make. A bit later, you're going to hear during the superintendent report, I think you'll hear things like, thanking you and others for your hard and thoughtful work, painting a picture about how you had to prioritize investments for the future of our children and community, and that there's plenty of really good information online for the community to look at. What I don't think you're going to hear is the truth, that there will be no thanking of you for making the hard decision to go for the bigger of the two bonds. I say that sarcastically. The one that will increase taxes for the community and not keep them flat with the last bond expiring. There will be no mention of anything about how the projects were prioritized, like what are the critical needs versus the wants versus the nice to haves. I also doubt there'll be any mention of how the continued drop in enrollment has informed or changed the plans. So maybe you think going big on the bond will bring them back. I don't know. There'll be no mention of this informative website and how it doesn't make any mention of contingency plans. In other words, you just expect the community to vote yes and bankroll whatever you want. There'll be no mention of the ESSER funds or other available funds that could be used in case this bond doesn't pass. And if the community knew that, though, then maybe they'd be less likely to vote for it. So I do, again, sarcastically applaud your consistency of lack of transparency and honesty with the community. I'm going to vote no on the bond and do all I can to stop it because I don't trust you. You claim to listen, we have selective hearing, and laws and policies are being broken and you look the other way. You knowingly overpay on contracts and you look the other way. You aren't going to hold yourselves accountable and others accountable. Then we're going to press the pause button on this funding until you can get your act together. Time. See you on the campaign trail.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, that concludes the public comment part of our board meeting tonight. And we will be moving on to the superintendent report.
Thank you, Chair Collette, members of the board, students, staff, and community members. I will start out by once again thanking all of our staff and parents. You heard some amazing stories from our transportation folks, nutrition folks, as well as some of our teachers who have been tirelessly covering other classes, filling other staff members, filling other duties, whatever it took to keep our schools open. And as the Omicron surged, we were experiencing significant staff absences due to the Omicron, and people just pitched in, and that's why we were able to keep our kids in school. So really want to thank you for that. And as you know, the school district has been reacting to constant changes that are coming down from OHA, ODE, and our governor. And today we had another one of those changes come down. As you were aware, it came out that there was going to be an option for districts to wear masks beginning on March 31st. That then went to March 19th. And today at 11 o'clock, we were informed that they were moving that date up to March 11th. And so with that, we've been doing a lot of work in the district. We are sending and have sent a survey out to our staff. We are also sending a survey out to our parents, and we will be sending a survey out to our students also regarding their choice on what they believe we should do with optional mask wearing. Also, we will be sitting down, and I've reached out to Association President Sarah Schmidt, and we'll be sitting down with our BEA bargaining leadership and looking at how do we move forward in this critical time. The great thing that's happening, and not only for the Beaverton School District, for Washington County, the state of Oregon, and our entire nation, it appears to be that the Omicron is really decreasing in a big way. So we're seeing less isolation cases, less hospitalizations, And that's just exciting to hopefully as we get back to normal. There's lots of questions out there. And at this time, we're not able to answer those questions because once again, we've been notified that on this Wednesday, we will be provided with some additional information from the CDC, from the Oregon Health Authority, and the Department of Education regarding some of the safety protocols that are new safety protocols, requirements, and recommendations that will be suggested. And so they're really, really trying to get that information out as quickly as possible. But right now, we don't have a lot of answers to some of those questions, and we hope that some of that's going to be provided on this Wednesday. And then just to remind people, the district's already has provided flexibility in the areas of outdoor masking, volunteers in our building, indoor athletics, other extracurricular activities. And later tonight, you're going to hear from two of our central office folks, Brian Sika and Danielle Hudson, regarding the information that they have. But right now, I'm in a real positive place because the numbers are significantly dropping. And we were on with our county health department today, and they also are optimistic. Next, I would like to talk about our construction bond. And as you know, the board did vote on February 15th to provide our voters the opportunity to consider a construction bond on May 17th. This bond would address seismic safety and security, technology, deferred maintenance, and the replacing of two of our aging schools, Beaverton High School and Raleigh Hills Elementary School. This bond would also address some of the inequities of outside fields, infrastructure, and inequalities that exist at our various school. I want to thank our operations team once again for their work in providing outside experts. These are not inside Beaverton people. These are outside experts that have come in and looked at our buildings, looked at the safety, looked at the security, looked at what our buildings need, not only now, but continue to look at in the future. Also, I just want to bring it to this board's attention, to community and other folks, that the ESSER funds that were provided, those funds were provided to deal with the pandemic. And the majority of our ESSER funds go for staffing to address the social and emotional well-being of our students, as well as the safety of our students while they're in these buildings, whether that could be HVAC systems, go to provide masking, additional purifiers, air purifiers, and everything. But those ESSER funds were really meant to address the needs caused by the pandemic. Just also on the superintendent search, once again, I want to applaud this board for going out. You're staying on time, and you're right on time to hopefully select a successful candidate in the future. I applaud you for going out and doing a national search with a search consultant, not part of the Beaverton School District, and providing you with some of the very best talent across the United States. Talk a little bit about the 2022-2023 budget, and our district, under the guidance of Assistant Superintendent of Business Services Mike Schofield, we're in that process of formulating next year's budget. This is a very complex process, especially considering our current environment relating to the pandemic. I think on a positive note, Oregon's economy remains strong, and the latest economic forecast was very positive. The budget will also be assisted once again by Student Investment Act dollars and the Elementary Secondary Emergency Relief Fund, known as ESSER, as we've talked about, to address issues of the pandemic. On the downside, as folks know, the district's enrollment, as enrollments across the United States, are falling. We are currently down approximately 2,000 students. Beaverton, like other school districts, are looking to recover some of those students. As the pandemic lessens and people become less fearful, we're hoping that we are going to recover some of those students. But a reminder that birth rates in Washington County are destined to significantly be reduced. They are reducing now, but also projected to reduce for some time in the future. If you look at these 2,000 students, that equates to about $18 million in lost revenue that will eventually go away. And so I really appreciate Assistant Superintendent Schofield, other members of the staff, but also the school board in realizing we're not just budgeting for 1 year. You're looking out across multiple years to ensure the sustainability of providing a great education for the students of Beaverton. We also continue to bargain with our certified association. And as you heard, we'll start with our classified association soon. I am optimistic that we can come to an agreement in the near future that will provide the resources necessary to our staff and students to be successful. Also, regarding equity, I just want to always say that since I've been here, the district has always valued inclusion and the voice of every student. We heard the voices of some of those students today. And our work is still to provide a safe and inclusive learning environment for all students. And we continue to move forward with that equity work. We don't always get it right, but we try. And if we fail, we come back again and we try to get that right. And when we know we'll get it right is when those disparities and outcomes are not predicted by economics or race or language. And then finally, I just want to thank, and I think President Schmidt talked about it today, but in a school district of 40,000 students and approximately 6,000 staff, you are going to have significant tragedies. And we've experienced those this year, whether it's the death of a student, the death of a staff member, other tragedies that take place during a school year. And I just want to call out our flight team, Leslie Rogers, her entire team, our counselors, our social folks that help us, social, emotional, anybody, and just our staff in general, our administrators, their community. We really rally when something like this happens. And I have not seen that in all districts, but this community is very caring and giving when there is a tragedy that takes a place that involves a student, staff member, or parent of one of our students. So a big shout out to them. That's all I have, Chair Collette.
Thank you, Superintendent Gradin. Get your comments. Next up, we have the school reports. We'll be hearing from Principal Batzel from Terra Linda and Principal O'Neill from Tumwater. Principal Batzel, are you there?
I am. Good evening.
Looking forward to your report.
Well, good evening to Chair Collette and the school board, Superintendent Grading, and of course, all of our students and parents and community. I just am very fortunate to be able to present to you all tonight about our school over here on the north side of the district, Terra Linda. We are one of the small schools in our district. And actually, we started our day today with a visit from the Tumwater Band. So I love that Principal O'Neill is here as well. All of our students at Terra Linda head to Tumwater for middle school. So we try to keep those connections going. And we heard from the band this morning outside on our playground as school was starting this morning. So that was really fun. I wanted to start tonight with a story about something we've done at our school for the last couple of years. And in the midst of a pandemic, it's hard to pull community together. Terra Linda is a school that has a really close community, and we look for lots of ways to involve our parents and our families in our school, and that is hard to do in a pandemic. So we also have done a lot of work around our equity work and cheering for our students of all different backgrounds. And so what we did is we decided to run an event on Zoom where we called it Justice League Storytime event, where we identified stories about real life superheroes. And then we basically offered read alouds on Zoom that families could sign into, but we sent home popcorn and hot chocolate to make it a fun event. And then we told stories. Our staff read books to kids, and we had over 100 families sign in and got to hear about these change makers in our world. Like we talked about Malala and her magic pencil from Pakistan, and the boy who harnessed the wind, who was a boy from a Malali village. He built a windmill to help his community. So stories like that, so to inspire our students, and that's what we do at our school all the time, is looking to bring those stories of change makers all over the world, different ages and backgrounds, in our teaching every day. So let me give you a little bit about our school so you get a little picture of it. Like I said, we're pretty small. We only have 294 or so students right now. We have 15 different languages spoken at our school. We have 16% of our students are language learners, 21% with disabilities, and 31% economically disadvantaged. So we have a pretty diverse school. One thing I wanted to point out, our students with disabilities, we actually have 2 classrooms of students in a structured routine center classroom. And so these are students with special needs who get special services at our school, but they're also part of our community, and they come to our classes, general education classes, and spend time there with our students. They're out at recess with all of our students and at lunch. And it's just a really special part of our community here at Terra Linda. So even though we're small, we have these 2 additional classrooms in our building, which we really love. And one of the things I wanted to talk about at our school that's really special is our work with social emotional learning. We actually started this 5 or 6 years ago. We were part of a pilot called Culture of Care at the time, which was training a cohort of staff around a lot of skills for social emotional learning before we called it that. And so we worked with our staff to bring those skills to our whole staff. And it has made such a difference in our building. Our whole district has now shifted to this idea of social emotional learning. We've added behavioral health and wellness teams and staff to that. But it's really been this journey that our school has been on to really acknowledge that our students need these skills, and building the skills not from an expert of just a counselor or a student success coach, but actually making sure every single one of our staff members are skilled in working with students and to help them feel regulated at school, comfortable at school, able to be around 25 other students in a small space all day long. That's a really hard thing to do. And we learned that coming back from a pandemic. There's a lot of skills that students need to practice to be around each other all day long. And so we are teaching those skills all the time. And as we do that, that allows our students to be able to access their academics so much easier than if they're feeling anxious or worried or having conflict with their classmates. So we spent a lot of time adding different things to our building, like community circles every day, teaching restorative practices to all of our staff, those out at recess, those in our office. And then truly, we are a community that looks at every single one of our students and is there to teach them throughout the day. No one ever thinks, oh, my job is to go supervise students right now. Their job is to teach students all day long. So we're teaching problem-solving skills and social skills out on the playground, at lunch, as they're walking down the hallway. Everybody's all in at our school, which is one of the reasons I love working here. We've added specific things this year with our behavioral health and wellness team because we have additional staff, like our full-time student success coach, and we have a half-time social worker at our school. and our full-time counselor, we're able to really support students, those individuals who need something extra. We have people that are able to do that, which I just feel so fortunate. We were trying to do this a couple of years ago with just myself and a counselor and a half-time academic coach. And it's just so amazing this year that we are able to support our students so well. So I wanted to thank our districts and school board support for all of those people. It is just amazing and is allowing us to do our work. And then that has extended into our equity work and our ABAR work with our students over the last couple of years around our work to really know our students well, get to know them, their stories, build on their identities and get to know that really well, and then know their stories, and then build on their strengths. So that has been a big focus of ours lately. We have diversified our classroom libraries so that our books are the mirrors and windows for our students, so they can really see themselves. And that's been supported by our district, but it's also been something that's been really important to me to make sure that our classrooms have accessible books for all of our students. And that is where we can keep pushing them to be change makers, like I talked about at the beginning, right? So that they see themselves as important people in this world and can make a difference. And they look for ways to change the world. We had a fundraiser the other day, and in just 4 days, our third graders helped raise over, I think, $1,300 for Tonga, just because they saw a need and they called it out, and our community centered around that. And so in such a small school, we're able to still do pretty important things. Our community is, like I had mentioned at the beginning, is also really important to us. And so, as we went through the pandemic, I think our parents had a window into all our classrooms, right? Every day on Zoom, they got to see what we were doing. And I think that really helped them see the great work of our teachers and what we're trying to do here. And I think that's really shifted us into this year where they know what's happening in our building and they can support that. Parent Square, by the way, has been a lot of information, but it's also a great way for us to communicate with our parents. So that's been a way that we've been able to keep that information going and let them know what's going in our building. So we have lots of work to do. We're coming out of a pandemic and trying to build all these skills for our students, both academically and socially. But we already know our students are growing. We're super excited about the growth that they're making already from whatever place they're at. That's what we do with our students. We take them from where they're at, and then we're bringing them forward the best that we can, getting them ready to be like those students we heard at the beginning, our future scientists and engineers and leaders. I have the little ones, but someday I hope they're on that screen presenting to the school board someday.
Eric and then Ugana.
Hey,
Eric,
thanks for the update. And thanks for having us to talk about the bond measure at your principal and your PTO meeting. That was really awesome.
Yes.
And thanks for giving kudos to the district, because they did really well the last bond measures you said. And they got extra projects, and you explained to everybody the extra stuff that happened on the perimeter, fencing, security, safety, all that good stuff. So thank you for that.
For sure.
Quick question.
Oh, I think we lost him.
Eric, can you give us your question again? Because we couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry, my computer. I think you're down a lot of students. You said 70 over 2 years or so. Can we get a lot of those kiddos back into Terra Linda?
I would love to get them back. Yeah, we've dropped quite a number of students. Part of it, I think, is just the changes in our boundary. Our boundary doesn't have a lot of new growth in it. We have apartments and a lot of stable neighborhoods. So that's probably into that. But there's also some students that didn't come back after the pandemic. So I'd love to have them back.
Ugana, and then Becky, and then Karen.
Hi, Christy. Thank you for that presentation. So when I was reading your report, I came across the Tiger Club. program. I was so impressed by it. And I was impressed to see how much the students that participated improved in their reading. And I'm so glad that you're going to continue with the program when COVID restrictions are lifted. So thank you for that. And looking at your report, your numbers are amazing. The question I have is why I don't see data for teachers and staff reporting they contribute to school decision making. There's data on 18, 19, but I don't see data for 19, 20, and 2021. I'm just wondering about that, where there's no data, and also to encourage that to continue to keep the numbers down on the suspension rate as well. Thank you.
I think we didn't collect that data from staff the last couple of years. It's from a state survey, I believe. So that wasn't something we collected. I always like to know that though, because I like to have our staff feel like they are part of our decisions. So I look forward to seeing that when we had that opportunity. And then our suspensions, that was in 2021 or last year, we had just a little bit of time in school and we didn't have students transitioning anywhere when they came to school. They just came in their classroom and then they left without going to lunch or recess or specials or in the hallway, which is all of the places that cause students to feel a little bit dysregulated and frustrated with who they might bump into, or they might have to solve a problem. And so my goal though with our students is that even when we're back in person like now, that we use other ways, that they have the skills to work with each other and be around each other and solve their problems with their words and keep themselves calm so that those things can be worked out. So it doesn't become a physical situation or something where we end up with having to go towards a suspension. That's my very, very last place I try to go, because I really want kids in school. And then, like I said, we work on those restorative practices to keep our kids in school.
Thank you, Christy.
Becky, then Sunita.
Ugana kind of beat me to the punch. I was also, Christy, it's so great to have you here tonight, but I was going to mention your Tiger Club as well. My different question is, can you tell me who provides that? Is it teachers? Is it parents? Is it, who helps you with that?
Yeah, so I hope to bring it back because this pandemic is in the way at the moment, but our staff actually run it. So it's just extra extended pay for after their hours, and teachers and our classified staff support that. And our academic coach usually would coordinate that. So just adding to the school day for students, but yeah, run by our staff. And then we've partnered funding wise with our PTC and with BEF to help fund that. Yeah.
That was going to be my follow-up question. Yep. And I hope that's best practices that we can do at other schools. But I was just very curious who staffed it and how it was funded. And you answered both of those. Thank you, Christy. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Sunita, then Karen.
Thank you so much. I had asked my questions and you answered most of them while you were talking. I'm really, really impressed with how you have included the community and the parent involvement. That's really, really good, because I think that those two pieces are very important. My question relates to, it's just I'm interested in finding out, safety is a very big issue, and it's very important for parents and for staff, and that we want our kids to feel safe. The fact that you had been able to bring your suspensions and expulsions down to zero, what restorative practices have you used? I would be interested in hearing that, just for learning for myself.
Yeah. So for example, when students have a disagreement about something or there's frustrations, it's teaching students how to work those things out with their words. And we facilitate that for them so that they can say what bothered them, how that impacted them, how they felt about what happened to them, and then have the other student really be able to hear that and respond to that. And our hope is, as students are making that connection between the impact they had with their actions or words on another student, that in the future, they might think differently about their actions because they can see how that really impacts them. And then, of course, before that even gets to be a struggle is giving kids the tools to notice how they're feeling, teach them to walk away before they lash out at somebody. So we teach a lot of zones of regulation here and give students kind of power over how they're feeling so they know it's not perfect. We're not at 0 still this year, so I don't want you to think I'm leaving here with a perfect 0, but it's my goal to be at 0.
That's good. I mean,
we want to keep it really low. So it takes a lot of skill building for students ahead of time. And then as soon as something is happening, helping them process through that. But we've trained our staff on that. So it's not just me or my counselor that know how to do that. It's as many of our staff as I can have trained every year.
Yeah, and you said that culture of care, you guys were the first one to start. Is it now?
There were 10 schools that started. Yeah. It was sort of like an opt-in opportunity, and we learned a lot that year. And then we've just been building on it every year as a district. So
that's great.
We've got a lot of things in place. Yeah.
Thanks. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Karen, then Susan.
Hi, Christy. I wanted to thank you I loved seeing just the variety of work that you're doing with respect to everything from zones of regulations to the restorative practices and implementing that. You mentioned, you thanked the board and the district for the staff to help you implement that, because before you said you were trying to do that on your own. So I'm glad that we could use our ESSER funds to really support you at this time for those people. To help in implementing all these different pieces in the coaching. I noticed a lot of the professional development you provided, whether it's the Soretta Hammond and building relationships, whether it's the teachers college and the workshop instruction that for reading and writing that I think are amazing. I noticed that you had about a quarter of your staff turnover. And I know you've been really intentional on the professional development that you've been building over the last 5 years. So I'm wondering about how you bring the new staff up to speed on all these amazing professional developments you've had with the turnover. Yeah, well, that can be tricky. Our classroom teachers have been pretty stable over time, so that we haven't had a lot of turnover that way. But some of our classified staff have changed, and so I just look for either ways that our student success coach or counselor can train people in the building, or I can get them out to training. So our district does offer that. And so it's sort of stealing minutes here and there to get training to staff and have those conversations. But I also hire looking for that. So I'm looking for people that already have a little bit of that background or that thinking, so that I'm building on something that they already believe. So kind of both of those pieces. The other piece I noticed was your intentionality to support your English language learners with the co-teaching, and then also providing that discussion strategies with the teachers. So I think those are best practices that will really support that growing number of multilingual learners or emergent bilinguals in your building. So thank you for taking that focus and supporting that group of students as well. Thank you.
Susan.
Me to unmute. Thank you so much for your presentation today. It sounds like Terra Linda, I equate Terra Linda to Montclair, which is the school that my kids went to. So, and I know it's a small school, but very powerful, and you have community support that sounds amazing, and a really nice community of teachers and all that. So my question is, especially with things going on in the world right now, and I know you have the support system for mental health, it sounds that way, but I'm concerned about our kids, coming into school, seeing what's going on in the news, and, how they're dealing with it, or if it impacts them or doesn't impact them.
Our teachers, we have the community circle morning meeting every day in our school. So that's a nice opportunity for students to
for teachers to check in with students, like, how are you doing? What are you thinking about? And so if it comes up, that's often a place it will come up in classes and they can talk with their kids about that. If it's something that is weighing on a group of students, we have our team that can support them. But our fifth graders, they know what's going on. They're interested in the world. And so, if it's something they're interested in, we can talk about it with them. Right?
I guess I'm specifically asking about like what's going on in Ukraine right now, if that's impacting. I mean, like, I know it impacts individuals and so I'm assuming it impacts kids.
Yeah, have I heard it in conversations? I gave our teachers some resources this weekend, so they had kind of information to be able to share if it came up in their classrooms. So our school doesn't have direct families from Ukraine, but I know they're connected to families from Ukraine and other Eastern Europe countries. So I know it's weighing on families' minds. So it's at our school right now, not a huge topic, but we take it on as it comes up, I guess. We're pretty small though, keep that in mind.
Other questions from the board? Well, thank you, Principal Batzel. My board colleagues have actually asked the questions I would have asked, and very much appreciative of your presentation tonight and all the great work you've been doing to support our students. So
thank you for the time tonight.
Absolutely. Next up, we'll have Principal O'Neill from Tumwater Middle School, and this is a kind of a special report because this is a report from a school that is just beginning. So I don't think I've ever seen this in front of the board before. And I'm very interested in how our new middle school is coming together. Yeah, Jill, I think you might be muted.
Oh, of course I am. So thank you very much, Mr. Collette and school board members and Mr. Grotting for hosting me this evening. It's really a pleasure to come back to you. I was thinking that it's been just a few weeks, over a year ago, that I had the pleasure of joining a board meeting as you selected the name for the new middle school. And I think that that decision that you made actually ties a little bit into my presentation today. So thank you so much for hosting me. We are serving 889 students in the building funded by a bond many years ago that served in a building that served as a swing school for so many schools as they we were building schools, and we had to remodel some schools as we had some water damage in schools. It's hosted a lot of programs. And this year we share the building with Flex Online, and it's been a great partnership between the two schools. It's worked. So we serve 889 students who are served in many different programs, but we've really focused on creating an inclusive school community from the beginning. We are made up of school students who came to us from 5 different elementary schools. We have a small number of students from Oak Hills, but we have complete feeders from Bonnie Slope, Cedar Mill, Terra Linda, and Finley. And our band is making the rounds last week and this week in advance of forecasting. They're playing either in the parking lot entries or on the playgrounds so that students can hear and see a little bit about what middle school electives might look like. We also have 7th and 8th graders this year who attended at least 3 different middle schools. The boundary adjustments included kids from Cedar Park, Meadow Park, and Stoller. Then we also recovered some students who'd been attending Flex Online or private schools or had been homeschooled as well. So we have this challenge of we have students from many different schools. We also have a staff from many different schools, many different states, even some who came internationally to join our staff. So together, out of all of these different experiences, we're really challenged to build a community. And so that's been one of our goals. And last spring, I was able to work with a planning team of staff and a student advisory team of over 80 students from all of the elementary schools and from the 3 middle schools that fed us. And from that group came our mission. And the mission includes the word empower, but it doesn't say that staff empower students. It really focuses on the students empowering themselves. And so our mission is that students acquire the knowledge and skills that empower them to change the world. Initially, the mission started with just change the world. And we thought, well, maybe there's some education in there we've got to do too. So we fleshed it out a little bit and then landed on a motto of we share, we care, and we dare. And that we share our ideas, we share our stories, we share our experiences is all an important part of building community, to recognize the humanity in one another and to recognize the experiences that we all have. And then we care about not only ourselves, but others, about our community, about our future, and about considering multiple perspectives. And tonight, I noticed during the public commentary that there were multiple perspectives, and we have to consider them. And then our last part is that we dare to innovate, we dare to create and uplift others, to challenge ourselves, to be open to changing our minds, which is really big right now, right? We all see what happens in society when we're not willing to change our minds, and then that they dare to change the world. So how do we go about doing that? This summer, I was in an AVID training, and we were talking about person-first language, where you put the person before the descriptor of the language. And the context that that's been described in every setting I've been in before is when we are talking about people who are differently abled or people who are served in a special education program. And yet we don't use that person-first language as a matter of habit for programs on the other end of the continuum. And so as a school that hosts the SUMA program, I challenge the staff to use person-first language for all of our programs. Oops, how was that 5 minutes? Including the SUMA program. So we have students who teach in the SUMA or who learn in the SUMA program. We have teachers who teach in the SUMA program, but we have students at our school. We have rapids at our school. We don't have students who are defined by being served in the Independent Skills Center or in the Structured Learning Center, in the SUMA program, in the ELD program. They're students, they're rapids, and we are all teachers of all students at our school. We've also worked really hard on building an advisory program. And at the very beginning of the year, we were influenced by the video that was created for Tumwater's dedication by Gary Wesley and Brandon Culbertson, because the theme of that video was around stewardship of our waterfall that we're named for, stewardship of our community. And so we've built an advisory throughout the year, this idea of stewardship, with essential questions of how are we stewards of our community? How are we stewards of this building? How are we stewards of the school? And I've really strived to build students' ownership, their voice, by listening to them in the decisions that we're making, and building out a student activities program that has just in the last few weeks really bloomed. I feel like we've been planting seeds and it's bloomed suddenly, with student leadership and a yearbook and the BEF S4 grant supporting our soccer and homework club, our BSU, our GSA, and we're part of that building that community is the restorative practices that schools like Christie's have laid the foundation for restorative practice and supported by our school support specialist. And today, for the first time, we welcomed a swarm of parent volunteers into the building. And so we're connecting with that last piece of the community into our building, which is parents and volunteers. We had our first OBOB pool play battles today, and it was wonderful to see parents and grandparents in our building working with kids, and just marveling at what they're seeing on the walls for student work and in this beautiful facility. So I'm sorry I talked long.
Questions for Principal O'Neill? Oh, Susan?
Yeah, sorry. It's a Susan problem. Jill, first of all, it's lovely seeing you. Yes, so nice to see you. Jill, I have a question. It was kind of about behaviors, because I know so many middle schools when we first started up this year, and like seems like maybe it just kind of settled down. now that there was a lot of middle school, a lot of the behavior issues seem to kind of come from the middle school area. And I was just checking to see if that was kind of true at Tumwater or maybe not so much because it was new and everybody was excited to be there. And then I have one other question too after that.
Yeah, we haven't seen the number of fights that I know have been occurring at other middle schools. And I think that there are many reasons for why that, underlying reasons, and us being new in a wonderful school probably isn't one of those things. There are other things that are getting in the way. I don't think that our students feel crowded in our building. I think that we are paying attention to student voice. We're pretty highly structured, and there's some kids who would like us to be a little bit less structured. But we've had to work with kids on remember our sixth graders were fourth graders last time they were in the building fully. And so recognizing that, teaching them the skills that they would have learned in fourth and fifth grade had they been together learning, and then quickly bringing them up to middle school expectations. And we're still working on it. I think middle schoolers may have felt for a while that they still had their video off and we couldn't see them. And getting adjusted to, oh, adults can see me and adults are going to redirect me is something we worked on.
Well, thank you for that. And then I guess, again, it's a new school, so I know it's kind of different this way too, but how is the middle school, common middle school schedule working at Tumwater?
Well, we just made an adjustment last Thursday to the math science block. We did have like a rotating block where students had math and science every day, but one period, a double period rotated. And we moved it to 2 even period days with just a little bit more than an hour. 2 even-sized periods. So they have math or science every day for about 61 minutes. And it has been a remarkable change for a couple of reasons. One is the students have been asking for this since September. So we told them, their voice counted, we can do this now. And they feel like they were listened to. The other thing is not all of our students are in the halls at the same time. So if you think of taking out about 1/6 of the students from the halls as they're rotating, that makes a difference in how it feels to them in terms of crowding, but also in our ability to provide adequate supervision. And then the teachers are recognizing this is just day 3 for them. And I met with a group of them after school, and to them, they feel more settled, more like their lessons can be more predictable. Our math teachers say they can get through a whole lesson every day now. And so that's made a big difference. I know students are enjoying their electives. We're missing the teaming that happened at middle schools before.
Becky, then Karen.
Well, Susan, good to see you. Good to see you, Jill. Susan asked my question. I was going to ask about the middle school schedule as well, but instead I'm just going to share an observation. And that is I had the privilege of being at your dedication at the beginning of the school year. And I was so overwhelmed by your community support. I mean, people were wrapped around that school wanting to see inside, and they didn't all have students. They just were anxious. I talked to so many of the staff that you've assembled, and they're so enthusiastic and they're so excited to be there. And the students were so excited to be there. And I know that all comes together because of your visionary and enthusiastic leadership. And I hope the honeymoon period never ends there, and that the Tumwater Rapids have it, that we're talking to you 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, and it's still there. But thank you for your great job of the planning that you did to get the Tumwater opened.
Thank you, Becky. I hope I'm not here 20 years from now, but I hope Tumwater.
Me either.
Karen.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to, I was looking at all the different pieces that you have and your intentionality with giving teachers opportunities to plan and collaborate during those very intentional staff development day times that you've put for grade level teamwork, for content area work, for committee, and then also for the committee work. And then I saw that also You have the academic coaches supporting teachers with high leverage instruction practices. So I know with the new schedule, it's made it hard for some of our teachers to team, and your intentionality, specifically using the spaces that you can find during the staff development days to allow them to do that is, I'm sure that they're thankful for that. And we're thankful because it allows them to really come together around the needs of students. So just wanted to point that out and thank you for that.
Well, thank you for noticing that, Dr. Perez. I think it's really important to be able to provide teachers the time they need to analyze student data. So on our last staff development day, they worked in grade level teams, focusing on students who had received a D, an N, or an I. And we looked at what does the team know about the strengths of that student? What do they see as the potential barriers? What are the students' interests that we can build on? And what are the adult actions that we're going to take and by when for each of those students? Because we want all of the kids succeeding.
And I think that in addition, what you were mentioning, you had those empathy interviews of students that were kind of having a little bit of a rougher time that really humanizes not only the student, their families and their needs, and really centers the support that you give them around the actual needs of the student. And they have a voice, and so that was another really amazing practice. So thank you for that.
That's a strategy that we're starting. We haven't actually done any of them yet, but we're starting it. So thank you.
Other questions from the board? I have a question for you, Principal O'Neill. You're starting out at Tumwater this year. Where do you see the school in 2 or 3 years from now? What's your vision for Tumwater?
I want us to be a high achieving school, and in a school where success isn't determined by socioeconomic background or by race. I would like us to leverage more student voice in our decision making, to have students really feel a sense of ownership. We're a complete feeder to Sunset. I want to see our students being successful at Sunset in that transition. And I think serving the community, we're hampered a little bit by being new school, figuring things out, but also by COVID protocols right now. But our students have so many talents, and they have the ability to create and to innovate. So figuring out ways that we can serve the community will be really important. And on an aside, in our 6th grade design class, the kids recognized that we don't have enough bookends in the library because of the supply chain. Bookends, really? But yeah, bookends. So they created their own 3D printed bookends, and that's what's in our library right now. So kids recognized a need, they designed a solution, and that solution is in effect right now. So imagine if we could take it from bookends in the library to something bigger in our community. And that's what I would like to see our students doing in a few years.
That's beautiful. Thank you for your leadership, and excited to see the journey as Tumwater grows older and becomes 2 and 3 years old in the future.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your report. Next up, we are going to have our monthly financial update with Deputy Superintendent Schofield.
Thank you, Chair Collette, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to spend a little time with you talking finances. You'll see in your packet the year-to-date activity and forecast, and it is unchanged from the prior month, so I won't spend too much time on that. I do believe we will get an update from ODE on the state school fund sometime during the month of March, so expect to see a revision to at least the revenue side, probably at your next meeting. I would add to that the revenue forecast and economic forecast came out from the state on February 9th. It was their March forecast, but it comes out in February. I want to get this right, that they said all major revenue instruments are growing strongly, led by corporate taxes. So good sign for the state of Oregon. I know, so I won't spend too much time on this, but that's only part of the story, right? So when the state has increasing revenues, we want to make sure that those get distributed onto schools in a like manner. That did not happen in the last biennium as they finished up the legislative session last year. Revenues were growing and we got a 3.3% increase over the 2-year biennium. So not a significant increase for schools, but the state's got a healthy reserve and healthy fund balance and growing. I would also add that if you keep an eye on this session, I think it's rapidly coming to a close. I saw there's a House Bill 5204 that appears to be a very long bill that's anticipates spending about $1.4 billion allocated out across the state. So keep an eye on that as well, and we will too. And the only other thing I would add is next Monday, a week from tonight at 6:30, we're going to do Budget 101, where we'll kind of start to set the table for next year's budget. I know it's always fun and entertaining for you folks. For you new folks, look forward to it. It's going to be a night of numbers and graphs and charts. It's just going to be a fun time for all. And that's all I have, Chair Collette.
Sunita, and then Becky.
Thank you, Mike. My question to you is if you can talk a little bit about ESSER funds. You know, we are going for the bond, and I want to hear from you how much are we expecting to get, what's remaining, and what can we use that for and what we cannot use that for.
Sure, thank you. I can help with that, Director Garg. Yeah, overall ESSER funding, we received about $70 million for Beaverton School District. We spent a good deal of that. We spent what we called ESSER 1. We spent about $10.1 million right at the beginning of the pandemic. We did that to maintain staff and keep folks working. Those funds are used to address needs from the pandemic. So that's what we've done. I would add that we're spending money this year, and we anticipate, and this is kind of a prelude to what you'll see next week in our Budget 101, we think we'll have about $46 million heading into next year and the following year. We have at Beaverton School District have allocated a lot of those resources, a significant portion of them, to staff and additional services. You've heard from principals tonight and others in prior meetings where we've created those behavioral health and wellness teams and added resources for students as we brought them back to school this year. That was a conscious decision, primarily by our deputy superintendents and superintendent in getting those needed services to kids. So a lot of money on staffing. And again, you'll see this next Monday night. Some money on some HVAC repairs and improvements, and a lot of money there on staffing as well to make sure we're able to respond to needs at schools as they come up so we can keep continuity of service. And then just general pandemic response that we're still spending money on, whether it's masks or, air purifiers, those kinds of things. But that's kind of a sneak preview. Does that address your thoughts and concerns, Director Gard?
Yes, thank you for the clarification. Thanks.
You bet.
Becky, then Karen.
Boy, board members must be having mind melts because I was going to ask the same question about the ESSER funds, but instead what I will do is ask, do we have yet the numbers after the new semester here when I see your enrollment numbers? I know that's not something that you crunch, we've got other people on our staff that do that, but I'm just wondering if we saw any difference after the semester as far as our numbers, whether it be plus or minus.
I would say, thank you, Director Timchuk. I would say that we had a meeting today with our in-house demographer and talked enrollment during lunch today. I think based on what we heard and saw today, I wouldn't expect much of a difference from the initial forecast he provided to us back in December. But he's working that through. I will say there will be some adjustments, but I think they're going to be pretty modest. Nothing too dramatic. And again, more to come.
Karen.
Hi again. Thank you for your work. I really appreciate these tables that you've provided for us at our board meetings, and for not that are really kind of, how incredibly transparent we are with our community about where we're using our money. or their money, whether it's the levies or on page 14, the community can see exactly how we're using each of the student investment account money, the levies, how we're paying for teachers using the different funds. So I find that incredibly helpful. And I appreciate Sunita and Becky's question around, we were talking about how we have $46 million that's coming this way. We have this money, but how is that different than the bond, right? And how you explain that the bond really helps us to do our seismic upgrades. We wouldn't want to take away from behavioral wellness and mental health of our students to pay for seismic. We just couldn't do it. It's just so expensive. And the bond also allows us to use matching funds that would increase the amount of seismic supports that we could do. How we can actually address some of that deferred maintenance. We wouldn't want to be taking away from students' classrooms and teachers to do deferred maintenance. So the bond is actually a way that we can bring up those safety pieces for our students and our staff. And as you had talked about in some of our bond pieces, how it actually, our schools that we're upgrading, that we're building, and that we have built become centers for in cases there of emergencies for our community as well. So thank you for that transparency. And if anybody has questions on exactly where money is going, these pages and these tables really provide that information in a very easy way to easy, because it's like you can look all the way down. We have 270 community glasses, 78 teachers or so with levy money. So where are we spending it? It's right here. People can look. And they can also figure out how that's different than what we're using the bond, how we're using that bond money that we're going.
Excellent points, Director President. I would also add to that, you jogged my memory. If folks want to know kind of the original ESSER plan that we shared with the board in the fall, it's on our webpage. If you go to the accountability section of our website, you can see the initial planning documents around ESSER. We know we owe you an update to that, and that'll happen through the budget process as it naturally would. But if folks want to go there, they can see kind of the 3-year plan around ESSER as well. So thank you for that. That helped jog my memory. I appreciate it.
And how that money is going to go away.
Yes,
so it's
one-time
not
funds.
That it's, we have in a few years that's going away. So we'll start our planning to see how can we use, what will we be able to do to keep those mental health supports and wellness for our staff, and keep that staff in there to help our students. So.
Other questions from the board? Mike, I've got a quick question. You were talking about corporate activities taxes or corporate taxes recovering. I'm wondering, is the SIA on track to be full force for us in the next year? And then, my question is, if that looks like that's happening, what does that mean in terms of real dollars into our district, in terms of where we would be in the future and where we are now?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Chair Collette. The 2 years ago, our estimate for SIA when we built the plan was that we would, at Beaverton School District, we would receive about 32 million. That fell last year all the way to around 10 million. It's back up to about 30 million this year, and we're on schedule to receive 32 million next year. So in terms of perspective, we're about to where our allocation should have been 2 years ago, if that helps. So we're not quite where we would be when you think about inflationary items, but we're in the ballpark. We're getting closer.
And we stand to gain a net delta of about 2 million in the next budget.
Correct.
Okay. That's really helpful. Thank you for your report as always. I echo fellow board member Karen's comments about the transparency and how easy it is to see what's going on in this budget, and appreciate all that work.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have the district COVID update. I think we got Brian Sika here, administrator for secondary curriculum instruction and assessment.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Collette. Thanks, members of the board, Superintendent Grotti, and everyone listening. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen for just a few talking points for you. All right. Could one or all of the board members give me a quick little thumbs up if you see a screen with some purple on the bottom? Awesome. All right. Thank you all so much. Dr. Hudson is here with me. We don't have a real long presentation today, so you're just going to hear me do some talking, and then both of us will be certainly available to answer any questions that you have. So I'm going to jump right in with a quick disclaimer, and I only mean this because of the report we put in the packet. I think I finished typing it last Wednesday, and pretty much everything on it has changed since then. So you'll hear some things that are different dates. You'll see some different numbers. The sort of general concept's the same, but I just wanted to point that out to you that quite a bit has changed in the last 24 hours. And I made the last edit to this just before the board meeting started. So here we go. And again, only a couple slides today, so not too much. What we'll talk about is just those metrics that we have been looking at all throughout this year, primarily case rates and vaccines. For reasons I'll share in just a second, I added hospitalizations in there just to give you some context, but we won't spend a lot of time talking about those. The bulk of what we'll talk about today is masking and the changes I'm sure you heard about in the news today. And if not, you'll hear about them in just a few minutes. So we'll talk about masks and the use of masks, both indoors, on our campuses inside, as well as on our buses. Just sort of talk about where we're at in the district, how we're engaging our stakeholders, and how we're going about making decisions in partnership with our labor partners. And then finally, like always, it's super helpful if you write your questions down and then save them towards the end. It's probably especially helpful this time to write them down because there's a good chance that we won't be able to answer them tonight, just the way some of the information is changing so rapidly. So we might just ask to get back to you, in writing within a few days as answers become available. So with that, I'm going to jump right in. Just remember, our North Star this year has always been to have that safe and engaging in-person instruction for all of our students. To be able to maintain that is looking better and better right now, certainly better than last time we were talking. And of course, the concern is, are there going to be any impacts to that with this change in masking, and what can we do to make sure that we do maintain that safe, engaging and in-person full-time experience for all of our students and staff? Case rates again, you've seen this a number of times. Just if you want to direct your eyes over to the very right, our cases are dropping. This is just Washington County. Numbers are dropping rapidly, just kind of relative to where we have been. The Omicron variant, which is, of course, that big spike we saw on the very right-hand side of this graph, went higher than it's ever been. But as the numbers are coming in for more current weeks and the information we're getting out of Washington County, not only are we, dropping certainly below where we were with Omicron, we're on track to get even below we were with Delta and start to get very near that real minimal case rates. So all that news is good news, right? So good to see that our community is becoming more well, less sick, and able to manage better than we have been over the past few months, certainly. This one's hospitalizations, and I just want to provide some context, especially on a Monday evening. We might be a little bit frustrated with all the changing dates, but I do want to just talk some of the context, and the reason why some of the dates were pulled up is because our projected hospitalizations are going to be below some of the thresholds that were put in place earlier than expected. So just to kind of put in context why Oregon, Washington, and California today came out with that idea of changing guidance. Part of the reason behind that is this chart right here. And really, you can dig into details on it later if you like, but if you just look at the top blue line way over on the right, you see it not only dramatically falling, but falling in approaching levels that we haven't seen. That is the total hospitalizations in the state. And what like OHA and the governor's office was looking for was that 400 mark of 400 cases you may have heard. Sounds like now the projection is that to happen right around that 10th to 12th of March. So that date will be one that's going to come back in a second. So for this, good news, hospitalizations, number of people in the hospital with COVID-19 across the state of Oregon continues to decline and decline fairly rapidly. All right, last bit of data. We've been looking at vaccines for quite some time now. This is just a way to take a look at percent of individuals in different age groups, and if they've had 1 dose, 2 doses, and the booster if eligible. I think the only one that is changing with any regularity, if you look at that top kind of box where it says percent of 1 dose, and you looked at our 5 to 11-year-olds, In Washington County, it's 54%. Eastern Washington County tends to be a little bit higher than Western Washington County. So the Beaverton School District's probably a little bit higher than that. But relatively speaking, we know that we have a little bit over half of our students with at least one dose in that age range, and then much higher in the subsequent age ranges above that. Okay, so that's the data. Kind of the takeaway on that is all the data is certainly headed in the right direction. I'm going to talk about some changes from two different entities. The first one let's talk about is the CDC, right? The kind of federal guidance. They changed the way they ask us to think about risk in the community. So they've changed the metrics in their sort of measuring stick to include both cases and hospitalizations. And when you sort of crunch the numbers for both and put it into their formula, what you would find is Washington County ends up in what they're calling a medium risk. So now, what does that mean to be in the medium risk? They give us a couple different recommendations. One is if we are in a medium risk, certainly if you have symptoms of COVID-19, we would ask that you still get tested. We would ask that you maintain and stay up to date with your vaccines. And the CDC would recommend that if you're in a certain risk category, if you have an increased risk, for example, maybe being immunocompromised, then you would work with your medical provider. You may choose to wear a mask in an indoor setting. So that's the guidance right now coming out of CDC. So that's and distinction that we'll continue to talk about this evening. The other important one, big change, significant shift in certainly the past 2 years. As of February 25th, which I guess was a few days ago, the CDC does not requiring masks on buses or vans if it's in a school setting. So that doesn't count for our airplanes, nothing to do with that, but specific to schools and school buses, CDC is not recommending that. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Here's one of those changes that we're anticipating and why some of the questions you may have and some of the decisions we're trying to make just not quite ready to seal the deal on yet. We are expecting changes in the quarantine procedures and quarantine kind of rules to come out soon. And I'll even give you a more specific date on the next slide. But remember that quarantine, that's not specific to students who have COVID. Quarantine is referring to students who have been exposed to COVID, by one of their classmates, et cetera. And so we are expecting to see some different guidance on that, but it's not in our hands yet. Okay, getting closer. The next entity I want to talk about is our more local one, the Oregon Health Authority and the Department of Education. So this is what came out today. This is what you heard on the news or whatever, that the indoor mask mandate for all of Oregon, and you heard Washington and California, right? It was done in collaboration. That'll end on March 11th, which is a Friday. It ends like at 11:59 p.m. So effectively speaking, on March 12th, this now becomes a local decision. So the mandate has gone away. There's recommendations that'll still be out there, but the decision on the use of masks in buildings just becomes a local decision on effectively March 12th, and end of the day on March 11th. What'll help us make that decision and to understand how that decision will work, that comes out Wednesday. We've talked a lot about Ready School Safe Learners over the past 2 years. Well, we're going to get another version, and we'll get an updated one on Wednesday. And what we know will come out is some sort of, we don't know how different it'll be, but some additional guidance around what'll happen with quarantines. I can't remember if we spoke about them in the last meeting, but one of the things we've been talking a lot about is without masks, and the current rules on quarantines, our need for contact tracing would go up really high. We'd have a much higher need for contact tracing. But what we're anticipating having happen is the rules for quarantines will change so that we won't have that large of a demand for contact tracing. So it won't be it won't have the staffing impact, and it won't have quite the burden to the system that maybe when we first heard about this, we thought. Little bit of clarification around testing. This is pretty deep into the weeds, but some of the test to stay programs don't really make sense if the quarantine rules change. So not sure operationally how much that'll change things, but we'll just get some clarifications around it. And then this last one, and I'm going to talk about on my next and final slide. When we talk about masking, we do want to really remember to use the terminology safe and respectful masking. And I'll talk about that when I close out in just a second. So let's talk about Beaverton. Shortest slide, but just it's pretty cut and dry where we're at with it right now. We have surveys out to all of our stakeholders. We have surveys out to staff. We have surveys out to parents and surveys out to students. And those are still accepting responses, but will close in the coming days. So we'll get a good feel for the comfort level of our various stakeholders under the various scenarios that may be possible. We're working with our labor partners. If you remember way back to September when we talked about our memorandum of understanding, the first one we signed for this year, we made it explicit. Anytime we're going to have a big change like this, we're going to go back in with Beaverton Ed Association, right, with our teachers union, and just talk about how those changes are going to impact everyone and what changes may need to happen as a result. With those two pieces, right, remember what we're looking for is that local decision on one, are we going to go to that safe and respectful mask being optional, or are we going to stay the way we are? And just that last highlight I want to put, there's always going to be situations, or certainly for the foreseeable future, where our students may see someone else wearing a mask. Maybe their teacher's going to end up putting a mask on, other students will have masks on, or maybe in various scenarios. And we want to make sure that we're able to support teachers and students and all of our educators and everyone in the system to know that that's okay, that's normalized still, and that's totally still optional. And so that's just that adding that part onto the goal, I think, is really important for all of us to remember that we're going to maintain that safe and respectful approach to masking all the way throughout as long as they're still with us. All right, team. That's my presentation for you. Again, happy to take any of the questions you have. And then also, if we don't have the answer right now, we'll just ask you if we can get it to you near to the end of the week when we get a little bit more information. So Tom, I'll turn it over to you to facilitate. Great.
Ugana.
Thank you so much, Brian, for the presentation. My question is, I'm not sure if I heard you right. You had mentioned that without mask, that the need for contact tracing will go up. And in conclusion, you also said that we're waiting for for community input to arrive at our final destination for or against mask. So are you recommending that we hold on to the mask? Because what I'm understanding is that we still need to continue to wear masks, or the need for contact tracing is going to go up, and that is going to be a burden that we will have to carry. So is that your recommendation, that we hold on to the mask for a bit longer?
Well, the good news is we have to hold on to it for a bit longer, 2 more weeks, I guess, until March 12th. And during that time, Ugana, I think you're right on. During that time, I think that burden from the contact tracing, I think we're going to get changes from CDC and from OHA, so that if we do end up moving to a masks optional situation, that burden won't be there anymore. I think we'll see changes in the quarantine rules, so there won't be the demand for contact tracing that technically would in place if we switch today. So the good news is we have a couple weeks. There's nothing we can do until that March 12th time anyway. And like I said, we'll work with our associations to and take all the feedback to come to a good decision together.
Sunita.
Thank you, Brian. I know a lot of things are going to change in the near future, but I just had a clarification question on your slide about the recommendations by the CDC. There was a bullet point about the increase people. Can you bring that slide up just for a sec, if it's not too much? See this, individuals at increased risk may choose to wear a mask in indoor settings. In this case, is the individuals at increased risk are kids who are not vaccinated?
Well, I think that could be a member of that category. I think this is brought more broadly speaking, and also even including like family members of immunocompromised individuals, individuals that are immunocompromised themselves. I think what the CDC saying here is, if you have a reason to have a lower tolerance for risk than potentially someone else, you would still be recommended to make either that personal choice yourself to wear a mask or work with your doctor to decide if you're going to wear a mask yourself. And there's quite a few qualifiers to be considered at a higher risk.
I was just trying to understand, because ages 5 to 11, almost half of the kids are not vaccinated. So they're more, they can get it easily, right? So would they be in this increased risk category?
I don't think that is the intent here. I don't think there's quite that cut and dry.
Okay.
So yeah. So now, just though to keep on to that safe and respectful part, if an individual family would be like, my student didn't choose to get vaccinated, and because of that, I'm more fearful, I have a lower tolerance for risk. Well, then they could certainly wear a mask, and that would be just fine.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Karen.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for all the info. I think in our community, what we've been hearing is that there's some confusion as to when, like, can we make this decision right now? The board should decide we're going to stop, or we're going to go, or whatever it is that we're doing. And what I'm hearing, what I've been hearing, and what I'm hearing you say again now, is that we're waiting for the Oregon health authorities and the CDC and ODE to give us some more information. It sounds like Wednesday we will be getting some more detailed information that would allow us to make the best decision possible for our students in our community, and that you'll be working also with our unions. And so it's a complex decision. It's not, they said the 12th and then we're done. No, we have to really take into account the CDC, the Oregon health authorities, and we're mandated to do certain things. So it's something that the board has been thinking about. It's something that our team at the school district has been thinking about. And it sounds like we'll know more by the end of the week. And that I'm excited that you put the questionnaire surveys out to our community, to our parents, to our students, and to our staff. That will give us actually some more information. So it'd be great to have more of our students and community parents and staff participate in that, so that we can take that information along with the CDC and the OHA and all the other information together to paint next steps. So thank you for all your work. I know it keeps changing.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Right. Well, thank you, Administrator Sika. Really appreciate the presentation, and look forward to getting some more information and seeing where this leads.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
And next up, we have a presentation from our regional ESD. And I think we have, I noticed we have a former BSD board member, I think is probably going to be part of this presentation. How's it going, Karen? And is Superintendent Goldman there?
I'm here, Chair Collette.
Great. Well, we'll turn it over to you guys to hear about some of the great work one of our close partners is doing.
Great. Well, thank you for having us, Chair Collette, members of the board. And you are right, you stole a little bit of my thunder here, that you are joined by one of your very own, Karen Cunningham, who, as I know you know, did serve on the Beaverton School Board for 12 years. And she stepped off in around 2012 or 13, Karen, and 13. And then worked on has worked since on the ESD board. And so I'm pleased to work with Karen. I know that she's pleased to be with you as well. And for those of you, I know I've met a number of you in the past, but I don't know everybody anymore. So just a tiny bit of introduction for myself, because, Karen really didn't need an introduction, but I do. I am the superintendent of the Northwest Regional ESD. Before that, I was the superintendent for the Hood River County School District for almost a decade. And before that, I was the assistant superintendent of Tiger Tualatin Schools. And Karen and I think we were passing ships in the night because she stepped off about the same time that I left Tiger Tualatin. So that's just a little background about me for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting personally. So without further ado, we do have a slideshow. I'm told that I'm allowed to run it. But I need permission to do so.
David, are you making sure Mr. Goldman has that permission?
There we go.
I see it flash across the screen. Great.
I see it there now. So give me one moment here. Here we go. Let's run it. I'm going to turn it over to Karen. She's going to do the heavy lifting here on the beginning of the slides, and then I'll wrap it up at the end there. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Collette, Superintendent Grotting, and board members. And it is good to see some old friends in the Zoom audience. As Dan mentioned, we are here this evening to present the 2022-23 annual report and local service plan for your approval. One of the great things about the Northwest Regional ESD is that it's the 20 component superintendents who research, wrestle with, and decide on the programs offered by the Northwest Regional ESD each year. The 20 superintendents have developed and approved the plan that's before you this evening. There are 9 directors representing the largest education service district in Oregon. 5 of the positions are elected by the component school districts, and 4 positions are appointed to represent key areas within our community, such as the business community, higher education, etc. My position, Zone 5, represents part of the Beaverton School District attendance area. Next page. As you may know by statute, each year, all Oregon ESDs must develop a local service plan that must be approved by the ESD board, which we did on February 8th, and it must be approved on or before March 1st by 2/3 of the component school districts. Next page. This annual report and service plan is divided into a number of parts. There's an overall summary of last year's accomplishments, overall financial summary. Page 19 and 20 will be particularly interesting to you as it's got Beaverton specific information from 2020-21. And then we go into the local service plan projections for 22-23, and finally a planned menu of services for that same time period. Next page. Our 20 component school districts encompass 4 counties in Oregon: Clatsop, Columbia, Tillamook, and Washington. We're the largest and most ESD in the state. Because of its sheer size, Northwest Regional ESD has an economy of scale that provides its superintendents greater influence in both lobbying legislators and negotiating contracts. But it's because of the work of the ESD's highly skilled staff that their ideas are sought after around the state. Next page. So on this page, we have our vision and mission. We seek to educate, equip, and inspire each student to achieve his or her full potential and enrich their communities. And we do this by partnering with the communities within Northwest Regional Education Service District to improve student learning by providing access to equitable, high-quality services and support. Next page. So the ESD has identified 6 collective commitments that support our vision and mission. I'm not going to read all of them, but we're dedicated to an equitable education for all students, which based on my time in Beaverton, I know you are too. So I think our commitments align pretty well in these areas. Next page. Our annual report contains several different sections. There is demographic information showing the percentages of different racial groups, special education, English language learners, and those who receive free or reduced lunches. On the financial side, we see Northwest Regional ESD's revenue sources and amounts, as well as the expenditures that were made during the 2020-2021 school year. Under the revenues, there are boxed figures that are the funds that we're discussing this evening. Our core program expenditures include the areas of technology, county allocations, instructional services, home school registration, and emergency closure information. And after that overview, I am going to pass it off to Dan, who will walk you through some more specific information.
I couldn't find the unmute button. Thank you, Karen. So I told you Karen was going to carry a lot of weight there, and so I thank you for that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the nitty gritty here about what Beaverton School District actually, and this is a look back, so that's one thing about this report. We kind of look back to the last school year, and then we will turn the page and look forward to the year, to our next year. But looking back, this is a good little shot, of how money flows into the Beaverton School District and what are the primary services. So if you leaf through the annual report, you'll notice that 18 out of our 20 school districts have a different pie chart here, the first pie chart. So in most districts, districts leave 25% of the revenue that comes in through the ESD, and they leave it at the ESD, and then we pool those resources. But Beaverton and Hillsborough are so large, really, that many of those services that the other districts really struggle to provide on their own, you have full-scale resources to do those things on your own. And so we flow 90% of all the state school fund resources that Karen just referenced go back out to the school district. And then Beaverton makes specific choices about the services that you feel are necessary and viable for the Beaverton School District. And as Karen referenced, we do that together as a team. So Superintendent Grotting, other superintendents in the state, a lot of the staff in Beaverton School District, the senior staff like Brian, who just spoke to you, Carl, who I know is here, and a number of other folks, work with us to develop the kinds of programs that you think will be valuable to Beaverton, and that will make a difference for student learning and achievement. And so that plan is developed together, and I'm going to go into that, into more specifics about that. But in general, the bottom pie chart there is a gross distribution of the services that Beaverton is participating in. So you can see the vast majority of the services that we provide directly to the Beaverton School District are in special education. Next follow-up is instruction, and we'll talk about some of those. But if you look over to the right, you'll notice that the outdoor school program is like the largest expenditure in instruction for Beaverton. So we provide outdoor school for, well, a lot of districts in the state, actually outside of our region as well. And that's a grant that comes to the district through Oregon lottery funds and Measure, oh gosh, it was 99 a couple of years ago. And so that's really a grant that you get, and then you spend it at the ESD and contract with us to run those programs. So that's the biggest instructional program that you participate in. And I'll talk a little bit more about some specifics here coming up. So in Beaverton, there are a number of buckets of services that you, remember this is back in 2021 that Beaverton participates in. We are the largest, us in Multnomah County. Can't misspeak here because Don, Don's wife will be all over me if I misspeak about early intervention here, but we are, along with her, the largest early intervention special education program provider in the state of Oregon. And so you can see here that we did almost 1,000, almost a little more than 800. I shouldn't be that hyperbolic. 821 evaluations were conducted for early childhood special education, and over 1,100 babies and children who had special needs were served through our programs before they hit your kindergarten. You can see in special student services, we have a number of students receiving very specialized support from highly trained staff. This is one area where I know I was eavesdropping, of course, on your board meeting. This is one area that is a struggle across the state of Oregon, right here in the metro area, and especially in our rural communities, and that is recruitment, retention, and care for some of these employees who have very, very high training, licensure requirements, et cetera. And so this is becoming quite an interesting dilemma across the state when you can't find a speech pathologist, for instance, or occupational therapists. So this is an area of interest for, I think, all of us. But we do serve a lot of students through those types of specialized staff. We have 88 students in 2020-21, students in our social emotional learning schools. And so we have a number of social emotional learning schools that we run and collaborate with, or we used to collaborate a lot more with Director Hudson there. We serve a number of students in deaf and hard of hearing programs. Again, there's our outdoor school program. Another program of interest, perhaps for the board, is we run the Northwest Promise, which is our dual credit programming across a number of post-secondary institutions and coordinate those programs. Next year, looking forward, we are going to combine forces with the Willamette ESD, and between the two of our programs, we will really have the most significant dual credit program in the state of Oregon, providing quite a number of pathways for students to earn college credit before they leave your doors, significantly bringing down, obviously, the cost of education to many families. We have a burgeoning beginning diverse educator pathway program, supporting teachers in your, not teachers yet, like classified staff and students in your school district now. So this data is growing. In the next year, hopefully I'll present to you and I'll show you some growth in that program. But these are folks who want to be teachers in the Beaverton School District or other licensed professionals, students and staff members of color. So really excited about that. And then another place where Beaverton spends money is with us is on grant writing. So you can see the figure there, the number of resources and the return on investment that RESD brings to other school districts and especially to Beaverton. The most significant grant here I was looking at is our Gates grant. So we're one of only a few entities in the country that gets funded, public entities that gets funded with a large Gates grant. And this supports our work on the 9th grade success program. So all of your high schools, almost all of your comprehensive high schools participate in our 9th grade success professional learning network, working on freshman success and high school graduation rates together using improvement science and equity as we do learning together. So that's been a really exciting development. Okay, and please, I'm not afraid of being peppered by questions by school boards. It's kind of what I do. So if you have questions, please interrupt me, and I'm happy to stop on any slide. But I'm about to turn the page to look forward to next year here. Okay, this is quick. Oh, go ahead.
I think Karen has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to hear more about the pathways, since we had 3 diverse educator pathways. We had 3 students. And I saw that we had the grants that kind of, we're working on diversifying our workforce. So I'm excited to see those programs grow. I didn't know. And then for the dual credit programs, how many students do we
How
have
many?
in that, or?
That is, I don't,
And you don't, I mean, it's like,
believe me, I looked at these slides and I'm like, somebody's gonna ask me the number of students, and all I have is the financial data here. I will get the number of students back to Don, and he can share it with the board. It actually is a difficult number to track in many ways. And so we've been looking at the number of credits earned, because but I can get more specific data on that. On the diverse educator pathway program. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, on diverse educator pathway program, again, this was a look back to last year. This year, there are more people enrolled. We really started this program in full with the Hillsborough School District. They have a lot more students enrolled in that program as of right now. Next year, there's also been a lot more money that we've been able to obtain through the regional educator network, work that we also shepherd. So that's work that we lead throughout the region, and an additional grant from the Meyer Memorial Trust on diverse educator pathways. So that program we expect to grow fairly rapidly.
Thank you. And then for my last question, maybe I was wondering if you could send me some information about that 9th grade success grant, and wondering how that, you don't have to answer this now, but just wondering how that, how we align that with our Measure 98 funds. So.
Sure. I will have to play dumb on how exactly you married Measure 98 in the Beaverton School District with that program, but I'm happy to bring and gather some data around your participation, the kinds of things that the 9th grade success teams do together. You've been part of that network for, oh gosh, it's got to be 5 years now, part of that network. And I'm sure that some of the instructional folks here on the Beaverton School District team can address how the funds braid.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been working hard on our credit recovery for our students and thinking about how to get that 9th grade ramp. It's really important into high school and through graduation. So not necessarily now, but I'd love to figure out how we're funding, how we're kind of aligning all those pieces. Thank you. And I think Ugana had a question too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dan. So I just want to get a little bit more information on the social emotional learning schools. Where is this program offered? Just a little background about the social emotional learning school.
Sure. We have 5 social emotional learning schools in Washington County. The ones that Beaverton participates in the most, I would say, and Danielle Hudson's here too, so she can maybe help out a little bit on those pieces, but are at Cascade and Pacific Academies and Levi Anderson. Home, it's basically connected to the St. Mary's Home for Boys. And they are schools that are rooted in social emotional learning. These are traditionally for students who have very high social emotional learning deficits, who have been worked with in the school district for with quite a lot of intensity. And then we partner, students are then placed by IEP teams in this level of service. So this is a very, very high level of service. It is a very, very high adult to student ratio. A lot of counseling and mental health support. So we have behavior specialists, a lot of school psychologists on staff. So there's a big focus on individual and social emotional, individual learning in terms of social emotional learning, and a group and collaborative work. And then the goal of that program, of course, is to have students learn those skills and then return to the Beaverton School District traditional schools. And so we do see transitions back from those programs back into the Beaverton School District.
So how do you determine what students qualify to be on those programs?
So those are determined at the, oh, I see Danielle is itching to get in here now. So Danielle, do you want to talk about how that works at Beaverton?
Sure, yeah. So one of the things that's nice in our district, because of our size of district, we're able to serve the needs of most of our students within our traditional school settings. So students might go to a different school to receive their program, but for the most part, we have approximately 900 students that need a higher level of support that we're able to address within our district with our specialized programs. And we have about 100 students whose needs either traditionally behaviorally, where they might have lots of physically aggressive behavior, or significant internalizing behavior, such as suicidal ideation and other self-harm type behaviors, where those students are needing really a separate special school, a school where the day-to-days of being in a neighborhood school with, anywhere between 500 and 2,000 kids is really a struggle for them. So we've been really fortunate in that we get to partner with Northwest Regional ESD. They've been wonderful partners for us with their social emotional schools. And they've really created programs to address our needs, because it's not a lot of students that have these needs. It's a small number. So we're able to leverage the supports of the ESD with our neighboring districts to really pinpoint supports. The process for placement in these programs are pretty long and extensive. In a lot of cases, we've had students who have gone or tried multiple different types of placements within our district. They may have additional adult assistance with them, and they haven't been successful. And so through the IEP process, we look at, it's kind of a continuum of placement, where if you think of you start with everyone in general education and you get more and more restrictive, they're really the top of the tier in terms of support, because we're removing the students from their neighborhood school and we're placing them in a school where all the students have a disability, which is pretty restrictive. But we're just really lucky in our county and with our ESD to have this option, because other districts don't always have that same option with our ESDs.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think I see one more question.
Yeah, thank you for this. This is really good. I am interested in finding out about the 9th grade success and also the college credits offered to high school students. The first one, I would like to know, like, which schools are actually, is this for all the high schools, or is it some of the schools, or, because that would be a really good program to offer to the high schoolers.
So all the high schools, the comprehensive high schools in Beaverton participate. And Don, do you want to talk a little bit about that? I see you unmuted there.
Yeah, hi, Sunita. Yes, all of our high schools participate, and all of them have what they call 9th grade success teams. So those teams meet, they go through professional development, and they're really focused on ensuring that those students are on track, because we know that if 9th grade students are on track, about 97% of those students who are on track graduate from high school in 4 years. So we can really start predicting the success of those students after the 9th grade, but also if they're not on track to graduate, we can also start looking at what type of resources and different types of instructional practices we need to ensure that we can accelerate their learning and catch them up if they're credit deficient. But all of our, to your point, question, Sunita, all of our high schools support. And then I know that there was another question about
the college credits.
Yeah, college credits, yes. And so in the Promise Grant, as Dan said, literally hundreds of college credits or of dual college credits are attained by our schools through the Promise, but also through other entities also. But we can get you the breakdown of how many. But
so how does a student qualify for something like that? To take a college credit at high school?
You bet. They just need to sign up at their high school, and the funding. I know the district provides funding, but the Promise Grant also provides funding, as well as in addition to the Promise Grant. What I was going to say, there are other venues to attain the dual credit also.
Thank you.
So Don, if you don't mind, thank you, Don. So just two little additions there, and I'll go backwards on the dual credit side. So the Promise Grant used to be, we in the state, there were a number of large institutions that really pushed the legislature to fund and seed dual credit programming in our schools. So our ESD was one of those. Like I said, Willamette ESD was one of the originals, and some stuff that out east. That grant the legislature did not reboot that grant in the last legislative session. So our ESD is keeping those alive through this process that we're talking about here, which is the adoption of a local service plan that allows us to use the resources that we have, and districts purchase back in additional resources. So that's how the money works. Part of that grant has recruiters. So we actually have people who meet with your counselors, create recruitment materials, and we make sure, and there's a high focus on racial equity in this work, and ensuring that our students of color understand, know, and are actively sought after for participation in this program as well. So there's an active recruitment into that as well. The only other thing I would add on ninth grade success, which I think would be interesting to this board, is that the ninth grade success teams at your high schools do have student participation. So there are students who work alongside your teachers, administrators, et cetera, at the high schools to talk about how they can create the conditions in ninth grade for more students to have success. So there's a big focus on student voice as a central feature in that design effort for high school, basically high school redesign. So those are two additional little tidbits.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dan, I don't know if he wants to come on, but we're texting, and I think our equity director, Pat McCurry, has some information. He was I believe, maybe one of the pioneers when this program started. Pat, I don't know if you're there.
Sure, Don, I am. Director Garg, I was just going to offer, if you'd like, I'm happy to explain the way in which students can receive access to the Promise programs. I was fortunate to be part of the group that piloted the Willamette Promise program at Westview a few years ago. And so just as context, it's really course centered. So it's open to any students who take the course through which the Promise programs are offered.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was much more succinct than my answer. Appreciate that, Pat. Okay, I'm going to kick forward here into the look ahead. I was about to explain a fairly dense slide. I know my presentation is getting a little long in the tooth, and so I will try to break this down very, very quickly and succinctly. Basically, what you see here at the top is a lot of statute, but the important pieces are that we must, by nature of these funds, provide services in special education, in technology, in instruction, which in the ORS is referred to as school improvement services, and in administration. It doesn't mean that districts need to participate in it, but it is, our plan must be constructed to at least have districts have opportunities to obtain services in these areas. As I stated before, and it's down on the bottom left-hand side of this slide, the superintendents work with us all. Basically, it's an iterative process. And in the fall, we work from the beginning of the summer, at the end of the summer months, all the way to November to develop this plan together. And then we vote on it formally. And so all 20 superintendents voted affirmatively that this is the plan that they would like to see. The plan has three major components in it, and that's the core services, which Beaverton does not participate in, as you recall. A menu of services, which I will show you the whole long list of stuff that you can purchase from the ESD. And then new in 2 years ago is the Student Success Act plan. So the ESD receives specific funds in the Student Success Act to provide technical assistance. And I'll talk to you about our plan for that as well. This next slide talks about how this middle part of the slide, excuse me, talks about how the money flows. So I think this is a really important primer because the ESD structure is, it's different. It's different than the school district structure. And, you know, I was a district guy my whole career, so it's taken me some time to really get the intricacies of how the money really flows. So the state school fund, which of course you all know is driven by enrollment, well, taxes, et cetera, that make the money, but then it's distributed on enrollment. And so ESDs as a general, as an entity across the state make up 4.5% of the state school fund in the state of Oregon. And then we at the Northwest Regional ESD get an apportionment of that based on enrollment. And so we're projecting $53.1 million. As Director Schofield was mentioning, we're still waiting for a number of estimates. So that's, you know, these are estimates, but we're expecting about $53.1 million that just gets distributed to our districts. 90% of it gets distributed to the districts. That's down here, that next box. And above that, you see that 10% stays at the ESD. And so, you know, we have roofs and we have things just like our operations, just like a school district, but we have a very, very small state school fund that stays at the ESD because those funds go out to districts. And I will talk to you about enrollment here and just to give you a regional view of what's happening with student enrollment. Those funds, you can see the 90% of the funds go to districts, and that green boxes there, that does not apply to Beaverton's. That's how it works for all the other small districts or smaller districts. Beaverton, it all goes to you, and then you make decisions about how you want to spend those resources back. I see a hand up, and I'm happy to take a question, Director Greenberg.
My question is looking at the dollars and knowing that we're getting ESSER funds. Are you getting ESSER funds?
We do get some ESSER funds. They are not distributed at the same way as districts, and they're definitely not at the same level. So new for me is at the ESD is you got to go and really advocate specifically because you know, money needs to flow to the districts, and I'm 100% that way. We got to get money to the districts. It's where the kids are. But we got the way we got funded through ESSER dollars is through our large grants. So I don't want to make you all dizzy by going backwards in the slide deck, but the last slide that Karen shared, which it has all of our resources on it, you'll notice that the state school fund resources are not the biggest part of our budget. We have a very, very large state contracts, federal contracts, and grants budget. So like I said, our EIECSE funds are like the largest in the state, or, you know, us in Multnomah. And so we got funded for ESSER through that grant, specifically for EIECSE at about, well, I can't even venture to say right now off the top of my head, but that's how we got that mechanism. Another, we got specific funds for long-term care and treatment, which is part of the grants that we use to fund the special schools. It's a number of the special schools that we just talked about, our social emotional learning schools. So we don't get general ESSER funds, so to speak, especially ESSER 3, very restrictive, like the districts did. I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah. Okay, so a little look at enrollment here. One thing that's important about the ESD is, I mean, we're made up of 20 school districts. That's how enrollment works for us. But we get funded on enrollment as a region. And then that money flows through the school districts and gets apportioned back out to districts based on your enrollment. But when one district loses a significant amount of enrollment, especially a large one like Beaverton or Hillsborough or Tiger Tualatin, that has a major impact on the rest of the region because there's less money that flows out. And so this is a lot of numbers, et cetera. I'll make it real, at least I'll make it easy for myself. These green bars are our region's ADMW, our weighted enrollment. And the blue bar is the state. You can see the trends kind of follow. But those blue numbers in the middle of the bar are our proportional share of the state school fund. And you can see year over year, we are a little bit less of the state school fund, which means that we get less money to pass through to the school districts on a proportional level with the state school fund. So it's an important trend for us as we look at enrollment and in the way the finances roll. So this is the core service. And like I said, Beaverton does not participate in the core services, but I did want to point out two pieces here where Beaverton purchases back into our core services program. And they're for the very things that we spoke about earlier. So professional development strands, Beaverton and Hillsborough, you both purchased back into the core services program to participate in those programs like ninth grade success. Like we have an instructional coaching network. You have a lot of staff who are instructional coaches or TOSAs in your district. They participate with us in how to be a good coach because coaching is a real thing. And so we're working with Jim Knight, who's like the guru on instructional coaching from the University of Kansas. And you have a lot of staff who are participating in that program with us. We have a social, emotional, and mental health network of professional learning and network improvement. The ninth grade success, like I spoke about before, diverse educator pathway, and the REN dollars. And then you also participate in what we call regional innovations. So that's our grant writing services. I'm sorry, that's where the diverse educator pathway is, not the other one. So diverse educator pathway, that's where we have our Promise program. Now that the state doesn't fund it anymore, this is where it gets funded out of there. So Beaverton and Hillsborough still do provide, and believe me, your participation in this element of our core service programs is a huge, huge help to our smaller districts because it bolsters the level of support that we're able to provide in these areas that they quite honestly cannot provide by nature of the zip codes where kids are born, cannot provide without kind of the partnership that we have with Beaverton and with Hillsborough. And I just want to publicly thank Don for really shepherding a belief that Beaverton's part of a bigger system, and he's a fantastic partner to the remaining school district superintendents. And this is one example of that. So this is a lot of numbers, but I do want to just point out, I don't have another fancy little thing that's going to pop up and circle numbers for you on this one, but you can see Beaverton as you, basically the way this works is we get the state school fund, you see our allocation, you see the amount of money that the ESD keeps there in the middle column, and then Beaverton's share of that is $18.8 million that goes back out to Beaverton. Hillsborough does that the same way. The remaining amount is this $19.3 million, and that's distributed across the other 18 school districts in that manner that I talked about. So 25% stays in the core program, which builds a lot of the services that districts just receive. And then the rest go out to districts just like for you, and you make decisions on how to use those resources to either purchase back things at the ESD or not. You can take them in transit, and Beaverton does in many areas, so that you can implement programs on your own. So here's the big daddy page. So this is all of our menu of services. So this is all the stuff that the superintendents wanted to see made available to them in their districts. So you can see on the administrative side, we actually do 11 of our school districts. We are their business departments. We do their business. And I know I'm not saying anything mysterious to Mr. Schofield there, who used to be the ESD CFO. So we do the business services. You can see we have other things like our Cascade Alliance for Equity. It's a collaboration between the 3 major metro ESDs, and we do equity professional development across the region. And I'm not going to read these to you, obviously, but there's a smattering of that. A very large part of what we do for districts. We're actually the largest provider of technologies, educational technology support services in the state of Oregon. We partner with Multnomah ESD to form a collaborative called the Cascade Technology Alliance. And we provide technology services. I'm talking all the way out to Eastern Oregon and to the vast majority of our school districts, obviously. And more detail around our instructional and special education programming services here. So that's the menu that you'll be voting on tonight. And lastly, and I know I'm really long in the tooth now, but lastly, the Student Success Act. So in the Student Success Act, ESDs were funded. There's a small, it's not that small, but it's a small amount of funding comparatively to what's going on in the district side to support school districts in with technical assistance. And we've broken this into three buckets. Again, the superintendents, we all voted on this. The first bucket we kind of call the getting and keeping the money bucket. So this is about supporting the district through the grant writing application process, through the community engagement process. When you first got your SIA and you first started to do all that community engagement work, you worked with, I believe, Rob Saxton and Randy Shield. They were under contract with us to provide those sessions and those resources. We have a lot of support here on the data side and on communications and community support. Then we have building capacity for plan implementation. And so we use some of these funds to bolster those programs that I referenced in the other part of the plan, the social emotional learning professional network, the instructional coaching professional network, 9th grade success. So we braid all these funds to make sure that those networks are really hopping for the district and useful for the district. And the last is around measuring the impact of these plans and scaling learning. So one of the things that the superintendents agreed to work on, really starting next year, but we're starting to do it now, is on, look, we've all been run over by emergency management. And we have to get back into the world of instructional improvement and leading our districts for that North Star of student learning, growth, and success in academics and socially. And so we are going to start working together as a team across our 20 districts in instructional rounds, meaning that we will go and really support high-level inquiry and looking at student performance and classroom performance together across the region. So we're going to be working with the Harvard Instructional Rounds Institute to do that work. It's going to be very powerful. We're really excited about that work with the 20 superintendents. And here's all the components of that Student Success Act plan. So again, I won't read this to you, and I've spoken quite a bit about a number of these programs tonight. And with that, I'll leave the screen up, but I'm happy to answer any more questions you might have. And I believe the way you all function is that you'll take action later on in the evening, as I understand it. I'm happy to take questions.
Dan, if I could just interrupt, and I know it's getting late and everything, but I think there's one thing that's innovation for the state, and that's our work together addressing equity in our early childhood education program in our preschools. I don't know if you can just very briefly just hit on that, to where you're working with us and helping us fund some of our preschools and really looking at inclusion models.
Sure. So it's extremely important work for us. I know it is for the district. Actually, Don and I first met years ago working on work groups to increase inclusionary pre-K learning environments. And that's how Don and I met. But in EIECSE, that has been an unbelievably underfunded program in the history of education in the state. It is really limped along on a shoestring, and we're talking about special education services for some of the most disabled kids, young kids in your community. There are kids who are on everybody's radar, right? They're not mysterious disabilities. They're very known, And that program has been highly underfunded. In the Student Success Act, EIECSE actually got funded. And I would not say fully funded, but a significant increase in funding in ECSE dollars. What we've done at the ESD is we've really tried to put our money on the value of inclusion. Instead of our students in that program coming to a special center 2 times a week for 2 hours, that was the typical model. So they come 2 hours twice a week, and then the rest of the time, really God knows what's going on. We wanted to use those funds to incubate and support districts to stand up fully inclusive preschools. And Beaverton was one of the first collaborations that we had in that regard. Now we're doing it in a vast majority of our districts, actually, our 20 districts across the 4-county region. And so what we do is we use our resources to actually buy down the cost of those programs. So we support a district, I believe it's $25,000 per half-day program that we pay tuition for. And so our students can participate in those programs. And by our students, I mean all of our students, but the students with disabilities. And then we push in additional resources in terms of our highly specialized staff into those environments. So Don, is that?
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Board members, any further questions for Superintendent Goldman? Thank you so much for the report. We really appreciate the time and the partnership. There's so many great things going on, and this was very thorough, and we appreciate being able to take a look at all of the work that we're doing together. So thank you very much, and good to see you again, former board member and current ESD board member, Cunningham. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So the next part of our board meeting, we're going to move to the consent agenda here. I'm going to open here.
Tom, I have a question just real quick about the consent agenda.
Yeah.
I didn't see the Northwest Regional ESD service plan in the consent agenda. So do we need to vote on that separately?
It is in the consent agenda under 8E. It's at the very bottom. If you scroll all the way down.
Oh, okay.
Does that answer your question, Susan?
Yeah, I guess that's the first time I think I've seen it pulled out like this in the consent agenda. So it's kind of a new way of presenting documents, I think. Okay.
With that, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Right, it's been properly moved.
Second motion.
Seconded to approve the consent agenda. I will take a vote here at the board, and board members answer with yay or nay. Susan.
Aye.
Karen.
Yay.
Eric.
Aye.
Sunita.
Aye.
Ugona.
Yay.
Becky.
Aye.
And Tom, I vote aye, and the motion passes. Board members, do you have any communications tonight? Karen?
Let me pull up my thing. I just wanted to say a message. I myself come from, I grew up in a country where there was war, in my home country of El Salvador, where my family and community members were killed, and myself, I had to live with mattresses on the walls due to gunfire outside of my home. And I personally apologize to our Ukrainian community for our error in our message. I see you, I hear you, praying for your families, community, and loved ones. I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Ugona?
Thank you, Karen, for sharing that. And of course, our hearts go out to the Ukrainian community and to the country. My comment is that I got the opportunity to visit McKinley last month, and that brought back a lot of fond memories. I remember when I used to walk my son down the hallway to his SRC classroom. So that was a fun visit. However, I left the school with some sadness, seeing how much some of our students are struggling. And just trying to put it out there that I know we have given some priorities to our Title I schools, our low-income schools, but they need more. We can do more for them. We can do better. And as we head into our budgeting season, I hope that we'll keep that in mind. I just want to put it out there. Thank you.
Becky and then Sunita.
I want to thank all of you board members that have been doing more than your share in getting the word out about the bond. I so appreciate that you're out there talking to our community, talking to your schools. This takes a village here, and I so appreciate, on top of all the other things that you're doing, your school board work, that you're doing this, and it's very much appreciated. And I just also wanted to share that so many of the things that we are talking about as a school board, we have so many different perspectives. There are so many different sides to the coin, and we're hearing from people that don't think we hear them, and we do hear them. That there are just so many different perspectives, and we're trying to honor all of those, but we can't always do everything that everyone wants at the time that they want it. But I do want, especially as I'm talking to people on the phone or out in the community, that you've been heard, and we are trying to take it all into account. And I very much know that we are asking our community for an increase in this bond, and it is our job to show why it is needed, and why it is needed for our students, and why it is needed for our community. And I welcome that opportunity to have those conversations and do the why. That is our job as a board of putting this on the ballot. And I welcome that opportunity to engage our community in those very important discussions as we move toward this election in May.
Sunita and then Eric.
Thank you, Becky. This month, I really want to thank all my board members, because I know how hard they have been working. I also want to say sorry to our Ukrainian parents who come from Ukraine. It must be a very, very hard time for them. And I also want to share that, we have been going to Mountain View almost every month, and I saw the collaboration between the teachers and the staff members and the administration, and how everybody is working together to make positive effect, bring something positive for our students by working together. And I'm really, really thankful to Dawn, to David, Tom, to come there, Mr. McCreary, and all the teachers who gave their perspectives of what we can do and how we can make the middle school experience good for our students. And so thank you, everyone.
Eric?
Hey, today was the start of my 25th year of coaching track at Sunset High School, which is always a great thing for me. I have a lot of energy and I love the school. So I just want to note that. One thing that was interesting though was like the mask mandate, right? You don't have to wear. What I thought was really interesting, it was like half the people might have been wearing masks, half the people weren't. There wasn't really any judgment. Kids, I see both sides of it. So it was kind of interesting today to see it in person. We're like, kids with masks, kids without masks, but they're all having fun together. So I think there's some message here for Dawn and the staff as they navigate mask mandates and what to do going forward. I think there'll be a happy medium that makes all stakeholders happy. So best of luck, and I look forward to supporting your decisions.
Susan?
I just want to echo our other school board members who gave a shout out to our Ukrainian families. I'm very disturbed by what's happening in this world, and I appreciate our family speaking up today.
Any other comments from the board? Okay. Well, with that, we will adjourn the board meeting tonight and look forward to seeing everybody next month.